Next customer. Please come this way, I called out as the cash registers grew increasingly crowded. Swiftly, I opened the adjacent register and began guiding customers through their transactions. After a concerted effort, the congestion eased, allowing me to return to restocking shelves. "Mary, you're amazing at ringing up customers so quickly," remarked a fellow part-time employee, breaking the rhythm of my tasks. In this bustling supermarket, a diverse mix of high school students and individuals like myself populated the workforce, making each shift enjoyable. My name is Mary, a 45-year-old part-time housewife who found solace and purpose in this role for the past decade. When my child began elementary school, I sought employment and landed a part-time position at this local market. The environment, filled with fellow housewives and understanding managers, suited my lifestyle perfectly. Over the years, I transitioned into one of the senior part-timers, familiar with both customers and colleagues alike. However, a sudden change disrupted our routine when our beloved manager was transferred to headquarters for what seemed like a promotion. His replacement, a newcomer from the headquarters, lacked the familiarity and competence we had grown accustomed to. Slowly, the atmosphere soared as his managerial style clashed with the store's dynamics. Rumors circulated among part-timers speculating on the president's wife's preferences for young, charismatic managers. It became apparent that our new manager saw her favor, often seen engaging in conversation with her. Despite the dissatisfaction brewing among us, none dared to voice their concerns to the president's wife. Instead, some part-time housewives and student employees quietly began resigning. As the situation unfolded, I found myself contemplating whether it was time to seek alternative part-time employment, unsure of what the future held in this changing environment. I found myself in the crosshairs of the president's wife, her sudden inquiry catching me off guard. "You've been working at the store for quite some time, haven't you? How's your child? Already in college? Which one?" she prodded, surprising me with her directness. "Yes, I've been here since the previous manager," I replied cautiously, not eager to delve into personal matters. Then, with a cutting tone, she remarked, "You seem rather incompetent. I doubt you even attended a decent college, did you?" Her words struck deep, but before I could respond, the register area became inundated with customers. I offered a quick nod to the president's wife and swiftly attended to my duties. In truth, my educational journey had ended with middle school. High school had been a tumultuous time, marked by bullying and eventual dropout during my third year. Since then, I had carved out a life as a part-time worker, eventually meeting my husband in a similar setting and building a life far removed from academic pedigrees. The president's wife, however, seemed to embody a stark contrast. She often boasted about her prestigious university background, yet curiously avoided divulging its name. It struck me as odd, but I brushed it off, lacking any particular interest. Perhaps she harbored preconceived notions about part-time workers like myself, assuming we lacked higher education. I recalled overhearing her discussing such matters with the store manager, leaving me to wonder if she looked down upon us. As murmurs circulated among fellow part-timers about similar interrogations, I found myself bracing for another encounter with the president's wife when, sure enough, she returned to the store the following day. "Excuse me," her voice cut through the air, signaling another potentially tense exchange. My attention snapped up when the president's wife directed her gaze towards me, a smirk playing on her lips as if she found amusement in some private joke. Despite the urge to react, I managed to rein in my irritation, keeping my emotions in check as she began to speak. "So, you're just a middle school graduate, aren't you? I never pegged you for a college goer, but to think you're managing here with that level of education is quite something," she remarked, her words dripping with thinly veiled condescension. I couldn't help but wonder where she had gleaned this information from, until I recalled the previous day's incident when the store manager had been scrutinizing the part-timers' resumes in the office. It seemed that what should have been confidential information had somehow found its way into the president's wife's hands. Annoyance bubbled within me at the thought of her freely sharing such personal details with other employees. I had never sought to fabricate my educational background, but the audacity of someone spreading rumors about my academic history grated on my nerves. While my fellow part-time colleagues seemed unfazed by the revelation, the president's wife took every opportunity to remind me of my supposed educational shortcomings. It became her refrain, peppering our interactions with thinly veiled jabs. "Maybe you wouldn't understand. Being just a middle school graduate, she would quip, using my education as a pretext to assign me menial tasks like cleaning. The repetition of her taunts grated on my nerves, feeling a growing resentment towards my workplace. I began to question why I subjected myself to such treatment, feeling increasingly disheartened by her relentless needling. A few days later, when she returned to the store, her mere presence was enough to stir up irritation within me. As I attempted to sidestep her, she caught my eye and gestured towards the cardboard box storage area, an area typically left untouched as it was designated for supplier use. "People like you should be familiar with garbage," she sneered, her words laced with disdain. "Middle school graduates like yourself are just here to collect a paycheck." Her words stung, delivered in the privacy of the back room, shielded from the scrutiny of customers. It was a deliberate attempt to belittle me, a reminder of my perceived inadequacies in her eyes. I had always managed to endure, especially since most interactions occurred in the bustling sales area. But on that particular day, the weight of my pent-up frustration became too much to bear. "Excuse me, but I believe I earned my paycheck through diligent work, regardless of my educational background," I interjected, my tone laced with simmering anger. The president's wife appeared taken aback, clearly unaccustomed to such pushback. "If you're going to be here, why not contribute something beneficial to the store? We're never quite sure what you're up to," she retorted, her words dripping with disdain. Ignoring the curious glances of passing colleagues, I pressed on. "And what exactly are you contributing by gracing us with your presence? Chatting with the manager, flirting with male employees and high school part-timers, looking down on the rest of us?" I challenged, refusing to back down. Her face flushed crimson with rage as my words hit their mark. "Unlike someone like you, I have a busy schedule. Coming here takes time out of my day," she shot back, attempting to assert her superiority. I couldn't help but scoff at her assertion. "Do you truly believe that? Neither the employees nor the customers share your sentiment. It's intriguing how some with impressive educational backgrounds prove utterly ineffectual in practice," I countered, releasing the resentment I had long harbored towards her condescending attitude. Clearly flustered by my unexpected retort, the president's wife struggled to conjure a suitable response, resorting to tired clichés. "Do you honestly think you can continue working here after speaking to me like that?" she challenged, her voice tinged with disbelief. Without hesitation, I delivered my final verdict. "Then I'll resign," I declared, refusing to tolerate any further belittlement. In response, the president's wife let out a mocking laugh. "Well, that'll save us on labor costs," she sneered, her words dripping with derision. I returned the smile, nodding in agreement. "Yes, that's right. Good for you," I affirmed before making my way towards the locker room. Inside, I found a fellow part-timer who had witnessed the earlier exchange. I poured out the details of what had transpired, recounting the frustrations that had been building up. "Mary, are you really quitting?" she asked, her expression reflecting the sadness of our shared experiences over the years. "It just hasn't been the same since the manager changed. It feels like we're only here out of obligation," I confided, echoing her sentiments. "With so many people leaving, you'd think they'd hire more staff, but they'd rather cut costs." She nodded in understanding. "It's becoming unbearable. I don't blame you for wanting out." Leaving the locker room behind, I headed towards where the manager and the president's wife were engaged in conversation. Without preamble, I made my intentions clear. "That's it, I'm done," I stated firmly, meeting their surprised gazes head-on. The president's wife chuckled, seemingly amused by the news. "So, the junior high school graduate is calling it quits. I wonder where someone like you will find work," she remarked, her tone dripping with condescension. I refused to let her words rattle me. "Even if I have nowhere else lined up, I won't be coming back here. I'll return my uniform next week. Thank you for everything," I declared, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. As I exited the supermarket, a sense of relief washed over me. The following week, when I returned to return my uniform, I found the store abuzz with commotion. The manager was being berated by irate customers near the cash register, suggesting some sort of transaction error. Despite the chaos, I felt a sense of peace knowing that I had made the right decision to leave. With my resignation already settled, I made my way towards the office to return my uniform. As I approached the door, the unmistakable voice of the president's wife reached my ears, giving me pause. Reluctantly, I pushed the door open, finding the former manager inside. Despite his new role at headquarters, my ingrained habit led me to address him as manager out of reflex. It seemed the president's wife had been engaged in conversation with him, but she hastily departed upon my arrival. "What happened at the register?" the former manager queried, his expression troubled. He proceeded to inform me of a spate of recent complaints at the store since my departure. With a cascade of resignations following mine, the store had been left scrambling to cope with the sudden exodus of part-timers and student workers. Though the manager attempted to fill in on the sales floor, his lack of familiarity with basic tasks like stocking shelves and operating the register led to a litany of customer complaints. Today's incident, however, involved a particularly embarrassing misstep. The president's wife, while conversing with a male employee, was mistaken for staff by a customer. Brushing off the inquiry, she exacerbated the situation when the manager inadvertently disclosed her true identity, sparking further discontent among patrons. As the register area swelled with customers, the absence of experienced part-timers compounded the chaos. Both unfamiliar employees and the manager found themselves manning the registers, resulting in numerous errors and lengthy delays. The escalating frustration among customers culminated in the manager facing a barrage of complaints, exacerbating an already tumultuous situation. Turning to me, the former store manager sought insight into the unfolding debacle, hoping for some semblance of understanding in the aftermath of my departure. When asked why I had decided to quit, I didn't hesitate to respond honestly. The former manager seemed genuinely interested in my reasons for leaving, and I felt it was only fair to provide him with the truth. In turn, he confided in me that he had heard rumors regarding the president's wife's educational background. While he lacked specific details, the word on the grapevine was that she had only graduated from high school. This revelation left me pondering the irony of her previous educational condescension. Could it be that the president's wife, with her supposed lack of higher education, was projecting her own insecurities onto others? It certainly made her seem all the more formidable and unpredictable. 2 weeks later, the supermarket I had once called my workplace stood deserted. The usual throng of customers was conspicuously absent, a stark contrast to the bustling scenes of my former shifts. It's no surprise, given all those complaints, I mused to myself as I observed the desolate scene. Lost in thought, I was approached from behind by the former store manager. After exchanging pleasantries, he mentioned a new store opening just one station away. He extended an offer, asking if I would be interested in joining the team. It appeared that an employee he had trained was being promoted to the position of store manager at the new location. Knowing the caliber of this individual, I felt a sense of trust and reassurance. I nodded in agreement and wasted no time in reaching out to my former part-time comrades. Upon confirmation of my role at the new store, I discovered that some of my former colleagues would also be joining me, a comforting realization amidst the uncertainty of change. Under the guidance of an understanding manager, I quickly settled into my new role. The atmosphere was welcoming, and I found it easy to establish rapport with my coworkers, both old and new. The new store introduced innovative offerings, such as local side dishes and bread, which proved to be a hit with customers. As I embraced this fresh start, I couldn't help but feel optimistic about the opportunities that lay ahead. As I settled into my new role at the store, I was greeted by familiar faces from my time at the previous location. The transition to the new store went smoothly, marked by a successful launch and positive feedback from both customers and employees. However, I soon heard troubling reports about the old store. It had become notably quiet, and the manager found themselves facing frequent scoldings during head office meetings. A string of new hires as part-timers quickly came and went, exacerbating the ongoing staff shortage. Finding a new part-time job had brought a sense of relief, and I was content to work happily as I had before. But about a month into my tenure at the new store, the president's wife made a surprising appearance before me. Her unexpected visit seemed to be aimed directly at me, as she wasted no time in addressing the rumors she had heard. "I heard there's a junior high school dropout working at our store again, so I came to check," she stated bluntly. I couldn't help but sigh at her accusatory tone. "What's the issue?" "I haven't done anything wrong," I replied, feeling unfairly targeted. She persisted, laying blame at my feet for the troubles at the old store. But I refused to accept her accusations. "Isn't it more accurate to say that you're the one engaging in power harassment?" I challenged, frustration simmering beneath the surface. Former colleagues from the previous store attempted to intervene. But I waved them off. I couldn't let them shoulder the blame for something they weren't responsible for. As a middle school graduate, I can't possibly be held accountable for all the employees quitting, I asserted, refusing to be intimidated. The president's wife's anger flared at my defiance, but I stood my ground, supported by nods of agreement from fellow part-timers. If you're having trouble understanding, let me spell it out for you. Your disdain for our educational backgrounds and the manager's incompetence have created a toxic environment, I explained, my words ringing with conviction. In the end, no one wants to endure power harassment while working part-time, and it was time for the president's wife to acknowledge the real issues at hand. When I accused the president's wife of power harassment, she immediately raised her voice in denial. "Are you trying to frame me without any evidence?" she retorted, her tone sharp with indignation. Just as she attempted to grab hold of me, the manager intervened, asserting firmly, "Can you please stop doing that to our part-timers?" Despite the risk to his own position, the manager stood his ground. "I am the manager of this store, and it's my duty to protect the employees. I will fulfill my role, whether you're the president's wife or not," he declared, earning applause from the other part-timers. With a resigned sigh, I reached for my smartphone. "I have evidence of power harassment," I stated calmly before playing a video. The footage showed the president's wife berating another part-timer at the previous store, clearly demonstrating a pattern of abusive behavior. As more part-timers stepped forward with their own recordings, it became evident that we had all experienced her mistreatment. "We're going to sue her," I announced, met with resolute nods of agreement from my colleagues and the manager. Furious at the manager's defiance, the president's wife impulsively fired him on the spot. But to her dismay, I revealed that I had recorded her dismissal as well, ensuring the manager's protection. Realizing the depth of her self-inflicted predicament, the president's wife attempted to flee. But before she could escape, I confronted her one final time. "There are more important things than education, aren't there? Sometimes humanity matters more than society," I remarked pointedly, causing her to pause. "How did you know?" she muttered, inadvertently admitting to her own insecurities. With her self-destruction complete, the president's wife retreated at a speed I had never seen before. In the aftermath, we pursued legal action against her, armed with solid evidence and the support of fellow part-timers. As news of her misconduct spread, similar complaints emerged from other stores, leading to a reckoning for her behavior. Forced to confront the consequences, the president demanded she repay her debts by working. It was a satisfying sight to witness her laboring angrily at a nearby drugstore, a fitting end to her reign of mistreatment. With a trustworthy manager at our helm, we continued our work with renewed dedication, free from the shadow of power harassment.
The inheritance of $10 million from our parents will be all mine. It's obvious that our parents, who care more about me than someone as unattractive as you, would want me to inherit everything. My sister didn't help at all with our parents' funeral after their sudden deaths. Yet, as soon as it ended, she started discussing the inheritance. What she insisted was hardly acceptable, though. "Fine by me. You can have the entire inheritance, but just don't ever contact me again." Who would want to? "You don't seem to realize that you're the one being cut off, not me." I turned my back on my sister as she laughed mockingly. I had lost my sister following the loss of our parents, but I felt no sadness. I am Hillary. I'm a 35-year-old office worker. Both parents started their own companies and were entrepreneurs launching new ventures. Thanks to them, both my sister Megan and I graduated from private high schools and universities. After university, I joined the company where I work now. But Megan never looked for a job after graduating. She just roamed around, occasionally working as a part-timer or a temp worker, without any real consideration for her future. Her actions were always impulsive. Still, our parents indulged her, always providing money for her escapades and living expenses when she wasn't working. They told me to plan my life carefully and manage my finances. Yet they never held Megan to these standards. The reason was simple. Megan had a very pretty face. She inherited our mother's large eyes and double eyelids, our father's sharp nose and beautiful eyebrows, and even our grandmother's good figure, making her a beauty that turned heads everywhere she went. Loved by everyone and confident, Megan was always popular and charming wherever she went. In contrast, I was born with our mother's low nose, our father's small eyes and single eyelids, and our grandfather's less flattering physique. I was shy and slow to warm up to relatives. Until Megan was born 6 years later, inheriting all the best features from our parents and grandparents. I had been the beloved first grandchild. But once she arrived, everyone doted on her. I loved Megan dearly too. She would follow me around, calling me Hillary. And I took great care of her. By the time she was in elementary school, she was so cute that she received offers to become a child model or entertainer from various magazines. This adoration, however, became painful for me as I entered middle school. Scouts who came to sign Megan would want to see me, but they lost interest in me instantly, and her friends openly stated how different we looked. Gradually, I began to feel the pain of hearing from others that Megan is cute, but her sister is. Even when I put effort into makeup and dressing well, Megan, laughing in her school tracksuit, was seen as cuter. Despite managing my diet, Megan, who would eat lots of sweet bread at night, maintained a better figure. No matter how hard I tried, I was always seen merely as Megan's foil. Worse still, as Megan grew up, she became aware of her blessed looks and started to openly ridicule me, feeling superior. In high school, her harassment began in earnest. It was routine for her to hide and take my things, or even claim the clothes I had saved up my allowance to buy. At times, she would even stage dramas in my room with her clothes, crying to our parents that I had taken them. Despite my protests of innocence, with a charming Megan at the center of our home and me locked away studying, it was clear whom our parents would believe. Hillary, you're the older sister. Don't be mean to Megan. Megan is just messing with you because she likes you. You're her sister, so please forgive a little mischief. No matter what I did, I was painted the villain, and if I locked my door for protection, I was scolded for not trusting family. Fed up with such a life, I started living alone as soon as I graduated from university, staying away from home. Despite my parents' pleas to come home, I never wanted to return to that house. I deliberately took temporary jobs during the holiday season just to avoid going back. About 3 years into this life, our parents were suddenly killed in a traffic accident. Megan and I met for the first time in a long while. Throughout the funeral, Megan was constantly in tears, so I handled the necessary arrangements, crying myself too. But a huge problem remained: inheritance. As the only heirs, it was easy to predict what Megan would say. During a later meeting at our childhood home to discuss the inheritance, our parents' estate is worth about $10 million. I'm taking it all. After all, you're unattractive, and our parents loved me more. They would be pleased. Oh, want some money for plastic surgery? I don't want it. What? Megan was surprised by my response, but no matter how much I thought about it, I didn't desire the inheritance. There was no time to mourn our parents, overwhelmed by managing relatives, subordinates, and business partners who attended the wake and funeral, and hearing comments like, are they sisters? They don't look alike at all. And seeing Megan's smug look made me tired of it all. I don't want the inheritance. You can have all $10 million, but there's one condition. At the mention of a condition, Megan tensed up and glared at me sharply. I won't inherit anything. In exchange, I'm severing all family ties with you right here, today. From now on, we won't contact each other or ask for help, no matter what. That's my condition. Megan looked dumbfounded at first. But realizing the terms were in her favor, she began to smirk. $10 million and I get to cut you off? That's perfect. Why would I ever contact someone as ugly as you? Just don't come crying to me later asking for money. Ignoring my sister's mocking laughter, I left our family home. I had lost all my family members, but felt no sadness, only relief at being freed. 3 months later, my peace ended. Megan started bombarding me with calls. I hung up immediately, but she kept calling. Since I use my phone for work, I couldn't just turn it off, so reluctantly, I answered. Hillary, I need a favor. I don't have a sister. It's annoying to keep getting calls, so stop contacting me. As I tried to hang up, Megan ranted on without even apologizing for breaking our agreement. Afterward, I tried to spend Mom and Dad's savings. But a friend who works at the city hall asked if I had consulted about the inheritance tax. It's inheritance if I, their daughter, receive Dad's money, right? But do I have to pay taxes just for receiving Dad's money? When I told my friend I would inherit $10 million, she said I should consult a lawyer. But I don't know anything about lawyers, so I want you to handle it for me. Her absurdity gave me a headache, but it wasn't worth the trouble to argue. I decided to tell her the facts only. As for the inheritance tax, you don't have to pay in this case, since the amount is under $11.4 million. You can only inherit everything because I renounced my claim. I've already informed a lawyer that I won't inherit anything. So, I have no right to do anything about Dad's estate anymore. Wow, that's great. Yet, you should ask a lawyer for details. Just so you know, you cannot just inherit it automatically. When a person dies, his property passes to his personal representative, who then distributes the deceased person's assets after deducting the inheritance tax. If money in the bank is held in the deceased person's name only, then family members usually cannot get access until probate is granted to the personal representative. You got it? Anyway, don't contact me again. When I said that, Megan lost her words and ended the call. It seems she didn't check the facts about inheritance. If she keeps this up, she probably doesn't realize that her assumption of inheriting $10 million is fundamentally flawed. But explaining or handling it for her? No, thanks. I finally relaxed, relieved at the silence of the phone. Later, Megan did consult a lawyer. She found out during the estate investigation that the $10 million was the total value of our parents' assets, not readily inheritable cash. Moreover, most of that money was tied to the businesses they had started. And Megan, who had no involvement with the companies, was not entitled to it. Worse, she was now responsible for repaying debts due to being a co-signer on some business loans. How much of the inheritance can I actually receive? As she offset the debts against the assets, the inheritance amount dwindled. Megan, panicking, clung to the lawyer after being told she would only receive about $1 million. She kept calling me in tears. Hey, Hillary, I'm only getting $1 million. This doesn't make any sense. That's still a lot of money, like winning a lottery. Didn't I say not to contact me anymore? Despite the substantial amount, Megan, who had expected $10 million, became a nuisance with her frequent crying calls. And Megan's troubles didn't end there. Even though her inheritance was nowhere near $1 million, rumors spread that Megan inherited $10 million. She was hounded by unknown relatives and so-called friends asking for money. And even stalkers and extortionists appeared. "Hillary, help me. Where are you now? I'm suffering so much." Her screams filled the voicemail on my phone. Judging by the content, Megan had probably visited my old apartment. But I had already terminated the lease and moved out. With no other way to reach me, she kept calling and leaving messages. She eventually went to the police, but since she herself had boasted about inheriting $10 million from our parents and suddenly started gifting designer bags to her friends, it was a self-inflicted situation. As expected, the rumors had spread. The police were at their wits' end, but eventually strongly advised her to move. "Hillary, I've met the man of my dreams. Peter doesn't know about the inheritance and truly loves me." One day, the tone of the voicemail shifted from crying to cheery. I suspected a scam, and sure enough, the man Megan met by chance and started dating, named Peter, proposed they move in together. After learning she had substantial money in the bank, he advised against the bank's risks and suggested keeping the money in a safe at home. Megan ignored the bank's warnings and closed her account, converting most of her inheritance into cash, which she stored in the safe. The next day, the safe was empty, and Peter never returned. I was deceived. Peter was only after the money. This is the worst. My whole life is the worst. Hillary, why aren't you answering the phone? Why won't you help me? It's because of such an attitude that you're ugly. Megan's chaotic voicemail messages kept coming in regularly. Why wouldn't she be suspicious of a man who, just after meeting and learning about her savings, immediately told her to close her bank account and turn everything into cash? Instead of calling me, she should have been more cautious about her surroundings. Hillary, where are you? Let's live together. Strangers come to my place every day. Help me. It seems Megan moved back to our old house after she could no longer afford the rent for the luxury apartment she had rented for her extravagant lifestyle. Now that she's back, self-proclaimed relatives who found out are constantly visiting her, claiming the house is too big for her to live in alone and she should live with them, which is driving her mentally exhausted. Twice a day, she leaves voicemail messages begging for my help. And finally, I made up my mind. Hello? Aren't you tired of leaving these annoying messages every day? Are you that bored? One day, I answered a call from Megan, and she seemed shocked to hear my voice. Hillary, help me. I hate this life. I want to live with you. Where should I go? No. I made a promise with you, remember? I renounced the inheritance in exchange for you never contacting me again. How many times have you broken that promise? I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Please come and get me. I can't stand this anymore. Please help. Megan seemed not to understand my words, only repeating her pleas for help. I said no. The reason I picked up the phone is that this is the last time. I'm changing my number, so it's useless for you to call this one anymore. You're just wasting your money on call charges. Let me tell you, I'm feeling really good right now. A nasty person who always lied and put me down has cut ties and destroyed herself. I'm going to live happily, so you better do your best too. Megan's screams echoed over the phone. I thought I heard her begging for forgiveness and asking for help. But that no longer concerns me. I had renounced my inheritance as Megan wanted, and kept our promise by not contacting her. Yet, she ruined herself on her own. The thought of never having to be in contact or compared with my sister again filled me with relief. I hung up the noisy phone, turned it off, and headed to the mobile shop in high spirits. Since then, I've been commuting to work from my new home, improving my skills, and rapidly advancing in my career. My boss commented, "You used to get down comparing yourself with others, but that's gone now." My colleagues noted at lunch, "You used to say things like I'm just. But you don't anymore. You seem brighter and more approachable." Finally, I've come to appreciate myself without comparing myself to others. Although I no longer have any family, I am living a content and happy life. I guess there's no helping it now that the affair has come to light. For your sake, I'll divorce you. But you're going to have to take care of that bedridden old hag. One day, I was heading to a day spa with my disabled mother-in-law. However, I had to return home because I forgot something and caught my husband cheating. Realizing that I had seen him, my husband brazenly said something unbelievable. I was trembling with anger at the affair and his disregard for his mother. But I returned to the car where my mother-in-law was waiting and explained the situation. I was so shocked by my husband's betrayal that I didn't know what to do. My mother-in-law kindly showed concern for me. "Don't worry about the future. I have a plan." I was astonished by what I was told then. My husband had no idea back then. He didn't know that a future of being crushed by the truth awaited him. My name is Amy Owen, 35 years old. My maiden name was Johnson. Howard Owen and I married after a romance that began at work. Let me start with my life before I got married. I worked for a trading company before we married. Let's work hard today too. I might say so myself, but I think I was good at my job. And I found it fulfilling, so romance was a secondary concern. You're always so enthusiastic about your work. If you keep this up, you'll delay your marriage. I'm not interested in that right now, so it's fine. Work is my lover, maybe? Humph, you're so smug, it annoys me. I won't lose to you in work or love. That's nice. Anyway, let's do our best at work. The person who said this was Susan Fisher. Susan and I were colleagues. And she always seemed to see me as a rival. Always coming at me this way, but I just ignored her. Then one day, a new male employee joined the company. "Hello, I'm Howard Owen. I'm looking forward to working with you all." This new employee would later become my husband, Howard. At first, I didn't consider him as a romantic prospect. "Amy, you look beautiful today too." "Oh, thank you. How about we go out for dinner after work?" "Sure, why not? How about going to a movie next time?" "That sounds nice. Let's go." Howard kept making advances, and gradually I found myself attracted to him. Then, "Amy, I like you. Would you go out with me? If you're okay with someone like me, I'd be glad to." Thus, we started dating. We enjoyed many dates and spent a lot of time together. Then one day, at a fancy restaurant with a beautiful night view. After enjoying our meal, Howard looked at me earnestly and said, "I will always protect you, Amy. Please marry me." "Really? I'm so happy." "Thank you, Howard." overwhelmed by the perfect situation and Howard's earnestness. I agreed, and we decided to get married. There were things that needed to be done now that our marriage was decided. Like meeting each other's parents. Howard had talked with his parents and arranged a schedule. And I nervously went to meet his parents. Hello, I'm Amy. I'm going to marry Howard. Nice to meet you. You don't have to be so nervous. I'm happy that you're going to be Howard's wife. Thank you. Howard's mother greeted me with a kind smile. I had heard from Howard before the meeting that his father had passed away long before I met him, and Howard's mother had raised him by herself. Since my parents had also passed away early, I was really relieved by his mother's kind smile, and I was truly happy that this person would be my mother-in-law. I thought, maybe it's reassuring that this person is going to be my mother-in-law. I thought that I could get along well with my mother-in-law, and I was hoping that my married life with Howard would go smoothly. Then one day, a phone call came to Howard's mobile phone. When he answered it, Howard looked very surprised. Seeing his expression, I knew something serious was up, so I asked Howard about it. I just got a call from the hospital saying that my mom had an accident and was injured. It seems she was taken by ambulance. What? How is she injured? I don't know. Let's go to the hospital where my mom was taken. Yeah, right. Confused by the sudden news, we decided to go to the hospital where his mother had been taken. When we arrived at the hospital, we saw the painful sight of his mother. When she noticed us, she said, "Oh, Howard, Amy. I'm sorry for causing trouble. Don't worry about it. Just focus on getting better, please." Exactly, don't worry about us. As we reassured her, she started to cry and said, "I won't be able to walk anymore." What? That's terrible. It was when I was shocked by my mother-in-law's story. Are you family members of Ms. Owen? The doctor who had been treating my mother-in-law approached us. Perhaps my mother-in-law was just feeling down from the shock of her injury. I hoped the doctor could clarify the truth for us, but the response we received was, "The condition of Ms. Owen's injury is that she has compound fractures in both femurs. We'll operate, but it's unlikely she'll be able to move as before." Does that mean she will be bedridden? I'm afraid that is a strong possibility. That's terrible. The news from the doctor was harsh. I couldn't believe that what my mother-in-law had said was actually true. Eventually, she would have to stay in the hospital for treatment. And during that time, my husband and I decided to discuss our future. I never imagined this would happen. Really. I wonder what will happen to my mom's life now. I was genuinely concerned about my mother-in-law's future. Would being bedridden mean she would need constant care? As I pondered this, a memory suddenly came to mind. It was the kind smile my mother-in-law had given me when we first met to discuss the marriage. I wanted to protect that gentle smile. That's when I made a decision. We should live with your mom. What? I'll quit my job and become a full-time housewife. I'll take good care of your mom. Amy, are you sure? Thank you, that will be a big help. Thus, it was settled that after my mother-in-law was discharged, she would live with us, and I would take care of her as a housewife. At first, I was inexperienced and sometimes puzzled by the care she needed. Howard, the meal is ready. Could you bring it to your mom? Oh, okay. Howard sometimes helped with her care, which was a relief. Thanks for helping around the house despite your busy work. It's no problem. I should be thanking you for taking care of my mom. I was truly grateful for Howard's cooperation. Life was challenging, but I felt we could overcome anything together. However, this belief would be shattered years later. I'm home. Hi, you're late again today. The busy season has started at work. It's been hectic lately. I see. Don't overdo it, okay? Yeah, I understand. Howard had been coming home late every day recently. Since I had quit my job, I wasn't aware of the changes at his company. I just assumed he was genuinely busy and tried not to think too deeply about it. I thought, but we haven't talked much lately. While I told myself that his late returns were unavoidable, it also meant that our conversations had decreased. We didn't have children, which might have been affecting us as well. Even so, I felt a bit lonely. One day, Howard suggested something. Why don't you and Mom go to a day spa and relax? Wait, aren't you coming? And, is there even a spa that Mom can use comfortably? I have work, and this is the time to buckle down. It's a reward for you, Amy, for supporting Mom and our home. And staying bedridden at home is tough on her, right? I appreciate the thought, but don't worry about it. How about this place? It's fully accessible and very safe. So I think Mom will be comfortable there. Howard showed me a brochure for the spa. Upon checking, it indeed seemed like a place where my mother-in-law could enjoy without any hassle. You've really gone to the trouble of researching this. Thank you. It would be nice if you could come with us, so let's schedule it when you're available. Maybe next time. For now, just the two of you go. Okay, I'll take you up on your kind offer then. Thank you, Howard. So, I decided to go to the day spa with my mother-in-law as Howard suggested. As we discussed it in her room. Is it really okay for someone like me to go to a spa? Amy won't be able to relax with me around, and I might bother other guests. I initially didn't know how accessible and safe it was, so her concerns were understandable. But that worry was unnecessary. I showed my mother-in-law the brochure Howard had given me. Look at this. Howard prepared this brochure, and the place is well equipped for accessibility. They even have baths that you can enter in a wheelchair. Really? But you'll still have to help me with some things, won't it be hard? Please don't worry about that. I want to help you. And if needed, the staff at the spa will assist us. Are you sure? Of course. Let's go together. Amy says so too, Mom. Go and have a good time with peace of mind. Amy, Howard, thank you. All right, I'll take you up on your offer and go with Amy. With a smile, my mother-in-law agreed to go to the day spa with me. It had been a long time since I'd seen her smile like that. Was she ever able to smile since she became bedridden? I prepared for the day of the spa with anticipation. When the day arrived, then we're off. Thank you, Howard. Oh, enjoy yourselves. Okay. Howard saw us off. As we drove towards our destination, I suddenly realized something. Oh no, I've forgotten something. Mom, I'm sorry. Can we go back home once? Of course, it's fine. I told my mother-in-law, and we returned home to pick up the forgotten item. And I heard a noise upstairs. I wondered, what was that sound? Worried, I went upstairs and opened the door to the room from where the noise had come. What? Howard, what are you doing? And who is that person? Whoa, bad timing. Amy, why are you here? Weren't you at the spa? Wait. Howard, what are you going to do?" As soon as I appeared, Howard and Susan were visibly shocked and flustered. From their appearance, I understood the cause of the noise I had heard earlier. Howard was having an affair with his coworker, Susan. What is this all about? Was the reason you've been coming home late? And suddenly sending me to the spa, all because of your affair with Susan? When I confronted him, Howard responded unbelievably. "It's out now, so can't help it." "Yes, I've been having an affair with Susan." "Sorry, Miss Johnson." "Well, you're Ms. Owen now, aren't you?" "What? What kind of attitude is that?" As I trembled with rage, Howard's next words were also unbelievable. "I guess there's no helping it now that the affair has come to light. For your sake, I'll divorce you. But you're going to have to take care of that bedridden old hag." "What are you talking about? Isn't she your mom?" "What do I care? You were the one who said we'd live together so you could take care of the old hag." "That's true, but you're being irresponsible. To think that he would disregard his own mother like this, on top of having an affair. What kind of person does he think he is?" I was furious. Nevertheless, I managed to return to the car where my mother-in-law was waiting, and explained the situation. "That's unforgivable. Amy, please take me to where Howard is." "Oh, yes." After being asked, I took my mother-in-law to Howard. "Howard, I did not raise you to be this way." What are you talking about?" "This is the reality of it." "What?" "In that case, I disown you." Even in front of his mother, Howard remained defiant, unable to tolerate his attitude. My mother-in-law made a clear declaration. "Amy, I'm sorry. I never imagined things would come to this. You don't need to worry about me, just do what makes you happy." Despite being shocked by Howard's behavior, my mother-in-law still cared for me. Having always felt she was like a real mother to me, my conclusion was clear. "Mom, please let me continue to help you." When I expressed this, my mother-in-law responded with a calm smile. "Amy, thank you. Don't worry about the future. I have a plan." "Really?" "Actually." I was surprised by her sudden declaration, but even more surprising words followed, suggesting a way to get back at Howard. I don't know what you're talking about, but just keep struggling. Really, do your best." Unaware of what we were discussing, Howard and Susan left the house laughing together. They wouldn't be so relaxed if they knew what was coming. From then on, my mother-in-law and I started living together. After 7 years, she passed away due to complications from being bedridden. With no relatives, I handled her funeral. But Howard and his affair partner showed up laughing. "So the old hag finally kicked the bucket, huh? Hey, she had a hefty inheritance, right? Must be about $3 million. I'll inherit it, so hand it over. After all the effort you put into taking care of her. It's pathetic that we end up taking the money." To think they had the nerve to show up. At that moment, I revealed what my mother-in-law had told me. "Sorry, but you have no inheritance rights." "What? What are you talking about?" It's pathetic to make lame excuses. If you think so, you should check this. What I showed them was my mother-in-law's family register. No way, my name isn't there? Actually, Howard was the stepson of Howard's father. Howard's father and mother were not legally married, living in a kind of common-law marriage. Coincidentally, both parents had the same last name Owen. So Howard assumed they were legally married and he was their legal son. However, that assumption was wrong. Howard and his mother were legally strangers. No way. This is bad, terrible. Howard, previously calm, now tore at his hair in panic. It seemed my mother-in-law's plan had worked as she had intended 7 years ago. However, she hadn't initially wanted to disinherit Howard if only he hadn't betrayed her. If he had lived honorably, he might have been entitled to inherit. Truly, he had only himself to blame. As I thought this, I turned to Susan, who had turned pale and spoke. What are we going to do now? How are we going to repay the money if we don't get the inheritance? Hey, don't say unnecessary things. Caught off guard, Susan blurted out something revealing. And Howard hurriedly tried to silence her. I thought, such an easy read. Their reaction made it clear they had been living extravagantly on borrowed money, hoping for an inheritance. There was one more thing I had to tell them. Also, I've consulted a lawyer, so I might be suing you for alimony. No, please, not alimony. Amy, I'm sorry. I apologize. Please, I'm reflecting on it. What are they saying after such betrayal? Asking not to pay alimony now is too much. That's impossible. I won't forgive you after such betrayal. And for hurting such a kind mother-in-law. I'm really sorry. Please, forgive us. As I spoke, the two of them fled the scene. Later, Howard failed to pay the alimony. Despite sending demand letters through lawyers and the courts, there was no effect. I wondered, what are they thinking? I decided to consult a lawyer again. The court has issued a seizure order, but it seems both of them have disappeared. The lawyer informed me. How can they just vanish like this? What are they really thinking? Their actions were utterly bewildering. Were they hiding to dodge paying alimony and their debts, or did they have another plan? Either way, escaping wouldn't be as easy as the two might think. I wondered about their workplace situation. Were they still showing up for work? Curious, I reached out to a former coworker and arranged to meet at a cafe near their company. It's been a while. Sorry for contacting you out of the blue. No problem at all. But what's the sudden concern? I've been wondering about Howard and Susan. Are they still showing up at work? As I asked, my coworker grimaced before responding. Those two have been fired for misconduct. What? The company obviously knew about your marriage to Howard. But then it came out that the two of them were having an affair. On top of that, they've been absent without notice lately, so it was inevitable. I see. I had suspected as much since they were now missing. Now, their whereabouts were unknown. It seemed unlikely that any good fortune would come their way in the future. Their end would likely be grim. What about you, Amy? What will you do now? Well, now that I'm free, maybe it's a good time to start working again. Why don't you come back to our company? You'd be a great asset, and everyone would welcome you. That's nice to hear. Maybe I will take you up on that offer. Returning to work at the company where Howard and Susan had been might feel awkward. But such worries seemed unnecessary. Feeling genuinely pleased by my coworker's invitation, I later contacted the company and returned to my job. Now, I'm working hard just like before. Though my marriage was unfortunate, I'm grateful to Howard for introducing me to such a kind and gentle mother-in-law. From now on, my career will be my partner. I'm looking forward to living a fulfilling life with this new purpose. Mom, I missed you. What's wrong? What happened? Dad said I'm stupid and he doesn't need me. He said dealing with an idiot is a waste of time and money. and to just do whatever without him. It's okay, you're a genius. No, I'm not. I can't study like my brother, nor am I the best at soccer. Like Dad said, I'm stupid and can't do anything. That's not true. You have talents that match your brother. Talents that are unique to you. Mom knows it. The real fool is Dad. One holiday, after I finished my errands and returned home, my younger son was curled up in his room. It seemed that my husband had left the house, taking only our eldest son, who is considered a prodigy. I would agree to a divorce. 15 years later, I've started a new job, and as part of that job, I was conducting a job interview. Please, come in. Why are you here? At the interview, my ex-husband was surprised to see me. But this level of surprise was nothing to me. I am Amy, a 38-year-old working at an IT company. My husband Garrick is 2 years older. And we have been married for 12 years. We met at work. We both work in web marketing at the same company. It's not a dramatic love story, just an office romance. After getting married, I changed departments, but I still work at the same company as my husband. We have 2 sons, Alex, our 10-year-old eldest, and Matt, our 8-year-old youngest. From the outside, it might look like we have a perfect family, successful in both careers and parenting. However, I've been troubled by something for about 5 years. Is this recording and the next construction? Amazing, Alex. You can read such difficult words and you're still in kindergarten. While watching a quiz show as a family, our 5-year-old eldest son was able to answer the questions easily. My husband and I were more focused on our son's answers than the show itself. Of course, he can't read the most difficult words yet, but he can almost guess all the elementary level ones correctly. You're a genius. You'll grow up to be a much finer adult than us. My husband ruffled our eldest son's hair vigorously, praising him. Our son looked annoyed, but also seemed pleased. Some might think we're just doting parents for making a big deal out of him being able to read a few words. But his genius isn't limited to just reading words. Hey, listen. Today at kindergarten, a friend caught a praying mantis. But the teacher said it was sad and to let it go outside. I know the teacher is scared of bugs, though. She looked fine. But I think she was actually scared. Maybe she thought we'd prank her with the mantis if we knew she was scared of bugs. It was so funny seeing her try to act brave. During dinner, our eldest son excitedly shared his experiences from kindergarten. He was so engrossed in his story that his eating paused. As a 5-year-old, it's normal for children to talk about their day nonstop. However, the way he narrates his day, using conjunctions and constructing well-thought-out sentences, makes it easy to understand him. It feels like talking to an upper elementary school student. In addition to literacy and conversation, he can also handle simple math and science. What's remarkable about our eldest son is that he has been learning on his own, without us teaching him or sending him to cram schools. I believe a significant reason my eldest son was able to learn on his own was the children's tablet I bought him when he was 3 years old. The tablets and learning apps these days are incredible. That's part of it, but it's really Alex's own abilities that are amazing. He's a genius. Watching our eldest son practice writing words on a tablet in the living room, my husband looked proud. I also think our son is a genius. But I don't want to be seen as just a doting parent. So I force myself to believe that it's not just him, it's the technology that's impressive. However, I can't deny he's a genius when something undeniable happens. The cram school teacher was surprised, wasn't he? Yes, Alex scored perfect marks on the entrance test, which included problems up to a third grade level. He answered them all easily. That's why the teacher was so surprised and said, "This child is a prodigy." The teacher's endorsement settles it. We're not just doting parents. As we spread out the perfect score test papers on the table, our expressions couldn't help but soften. When our eldest son started elementary school, we decided to enroll him in a cram school. We planned to do it eventually, but we thought it was time since there are limits to learning with a tablet alone. I'll stop by the cram school on my way home from school today. Got a question for the teacher? Yes. I'll also study in an empty classroom. Okay, I'll pick you up from the cram school after work. Our eldest son put on his shoes and cheerfully went to school. To anyone else, he might look like any other elementary school student. I waved goodbye to him without turning back. He seems to enjoy studying more at the cram school than on his own. He feels it's more efficient than studying alone, and he seems to have fun. Studying is a struggle for an ordinary person like me, but to him, it's more interesting than games. Perhaps that's the difference between an ordinary person and a genius. While this has turned into a brag about our eldest son, the reason I've been troubled for the past 5 years is precisely because of his genius. With our prodigy eldest son getting all the attention, people always talk about him. But we also have our youngest son, Matt. Unlike his older brother, Matt isn't a prodigy, he's just a normal child. He couldn't read words or do math and science from kindergarten like his brother. But what does that matter? People focusing solely on our eldest son is unavoidable. However, as their mother, I love them both equally. I don't treat our eldest son specially because he's a prodigy, and I show the same affection to Matt as I do to his older brother. Enrolling our eldest son in cram school wasn't special treatment. It was just what was best for him. When Matt started elementary school, he became interested in soccer. So we enrolled him in a local soccer club. I pick him up when practice ends late, and I've bought him balls and gear. Matt seems to have a more active personality than his older brother. Hey, brother. Can you help me with my homework? Again? What don't you understand? With a look of discontent for having to stop his own studies, the elder son, Alex, teaches his younger brother, Matt, how to solve a problem. Alex seems reluctant but has never refused Matt's requests. Alex and Matt have different interests, studies for Alex, and sports for Matt, and their personalities are quite different. But they get along well. In our family, nobody treats Alex and Matt differently. Except for one person. Alex. I heard from the cram school teacher that you topped the test again. They said your abilities could easily rank at the top nationwide. It doesn't really matter to me. No, it does matter. You deserve a reward for your results. Is there anything you want or something you'd like to do? It's okay. You just took me to the botanical garden. Don't hold back. It's my job as a father to make your studying easier. Then, I could use some new highlighters, mine are almost out. All right, leave it to me. I'll get you a pack of 10 colors. Keep up the good work. As my husband pats Alex on the back while he studies in the living room, he praises him and offers rewards for his good test scores. Alex looks a bit annoyed by this. Now that Alex is 10 and Matt is 8, there's a significant difference in their academic abilities. Neither I nor Alex and Matt care about this. But my husband seems to only clearly favor Alex. My husband buys various things only for Alex. He took Alex alone to the botanical garden because Alex wanted to observe the plants there, deciding that there was no need for Matt and me to go. Matt, don't just play soccer, take a page out of your brother's book and study more. You can't make a living off soccer, you know. Watching Matt, who was previously enjoying TV next to his studying brother, my husband's smile suddenly disappeared. Matt had finished his homework before watching TV, and Alex never minds the noise while he studies. This is self-study. Therefore, it's not like Matt is slacking off. However, since he hasn't produced results in either studies or soccer, my husband equates it to slacking off. Indeed, competition is important in society. But this is too early for an 8-year-old Matt, and I can't accept my husband's words. Hey! Matt is trying his best in his own way, that's enough. Why do you make such comparisons with Alex? If effort is enough, what if no results come from it? It means nothing. Why is there such a difference between our children? What do you mean by difference? Matt is fine as he is. I couldn't hold back and yelled at my husband, but he, believing he was correct, just smirked and walked out of the living room. My husband's favoritism towards Alex started about 5 years ago, and his treatment of Matt has gradually worsened. I've tried to call him out on it, but his attitude hasn't changed, leaving me frustrated. Seeing Matt looking down as if he did something wrong made me sad. He turned off the TV he was watching and went to his room. At 8 years old, he understands adult conversations. Surely, my husband's words hurt him. I followed my husband to the bedroom and yelled at him again. What are you thinking? Matt looked so sad. His mental weakness is also a problem. You need a strong mentality to achieve results in studies or sports, right? Maybe I should train Matt's mentality. My husband seemed to have come up with another bad idea, grinning again. His expression looked devilish to me, and while I was initially angry, I soon felt frightened. Don't say things that make Matt sad anymore. I suppressed my fear and warned my husband loudly. The true nature of this fear would soon become apparent. The next evening, as usual, Matt watched TV in the living room after finishing his homework, and Alex studied without caring about the TV noise. My husband abruptly walked over to Matt, grabbed the remote from the table, and turned off the TV. Don't slack off. Why do you have such a habit? Look at your brother, he's studying, isn't he? Shouldn't you be studying too? All you do is play soccer until late evening. What will that get you? Can you be the best at soccer? If not, you can't make a living with it. You'd better study a bit for your future. If you don't study, I'll kick you out of the house. Matt, not understanding why he was being suddenly yelled at, began to cry silently. Alex stopped studying as well. The fear towards my husband paralyzed me, Alex, and Matt for a few seconds of silence. Unable to bear the silence any longer, Matt abruptly stood up from the sofa and ran to his room crying. Suddenly saying such things, what are you thinking? Not wanting to argue in front of Alex, I grabbed my husband's arm and dragged him to the bedroom. Ouch, let go. What are you thinking? Suddenly berating Matt like that. I thought maybe Matt's lack of thoroughness in studies and sports is because of a weak mentality. So, I thought I'd yell at him when he slacks off or fails to produce results. Maybe that'll instill some stoicism in him? My husband's expression was serious. I felt fear again at his belief in such an unbelievable method of education. It was natural for me to decide not to let my husband and Matt interact any further. Stop it. Don't involve yourself with Matt anymore. Is that so? You take care of Matt. I'll take care of Alex then. I appealed to my husband in a voice that seemed to seek help. But he seemed to have come up with another bad idea. A month later, as I instructed, my husband stopped interfering with Matt's education and mostly avoided talking to him. His words about me taking care of Matt and him taking care of Alex probably meant that we should each handle the education of one child. Personally, I don't think it's a good method of education. But it's better than my husband continuing to yell at Matt. Besides, Alex can learn on his own and already makes decisions like an adult. So there shouldn't be any problems even if I can't intervene in his education. Though reluctantly, I decided this arrangement was acceptable for now to protect Matt. However, my husband's thoughts were far beyond what I had imagined. One holiday, I was out from morning till evening for an errand. When I returned home and entered the house, I was struck by a strange feeling of unease. Not sure if it was necessary. I cautiously moved along the hallway and first headed towards the living room. As I opened the door to the living room and slowly peered inside, the room's scenery had changed. The shelves were empty of small items, and the walls were bare where things had once hung. I panicked for a moment, thinking a burglar had entered, but the choice of stolen items and the undisturbed state of the room were odd. It seemed as if only the necessary items had been taken. With no one in the living room, I worriedly headed to the children's rooms. As I touched the doorknob of Matt's room, I sensed someone inside. Gathering my courage, I quietly opened the door. "Mom, I missed you." Despite it being evening and getting dark, Matt was sitting in his room in the dark, curled up in a ball. I didn't turn on the light, but instead rushed over to my son, who looked troubled. "What's wrong? What happened?" "Dad said I'm stupid and unnecessary. Dealing with an idiot is just a waste of time and money. So you guys can just do whatever without me." As my younger son spoke, I could feel my anger rising, almost to the point of exploding. However, seeing his sad expression made my anger decrease slightly, and sadness began to take over. "It's okay, you're a genius." "That's a lie. I can't study like my brother, nor am I the best at soccer. Just like Dad said, I'm stupid and can't do anything." "That's not true. Matt, you have talents that match your brother. Talents that are unique to you. Mom knows this well. The real fool is Dad. Are you hungry? Shall we have dinner?" I tried to distract my younger son from his sadness by changing the subject to dinner, though it might have also been to mask my own sadness and anger. It seems that instead of sharing the responsibility of our children's education, my husband is thinking of divorce, where each of us would take one child and raise them separately. He probably thinks that having the prodigious elder son with a younger son who can't meet his standards will negatively influence him. I agree with the idea of divorce. I don't want the younger son to be with my husband, and our arguments must have been audible to the children even from another room. For the children's sake, it would be better if we divorced. However, I would like to prevent my husband from taking the elder son. Thus, during the divorce discussions, there was a dispute about the elder son. We decided to ask for the elder son's opinion, expecting him to choose to live with me. But he said, "I want to live with Dad." He wants to live with me too, right? His words shocked me, and I was left speechless. Seeing me like this, my husband sneered audibly. Since the elder son wants this, there was nothing I could do. The divorce ended up just as my husband had hoped, with him taking the elder son, and me taking the younger son. For my husband, who values results above all, this must have been a satisfying outcome. However, the results that followed did not go as he had hoped. 15 years later, not wanting to work at the same company as my husband, I used the divorce as an opportunity to work at a different company, doing a different job. Although we moved, I didn't want to transfer my younger son to another school, so we moved nearby. My ex-husband seemed to have the same idea, and moved not far from our previous home. The child support for my younger son stopped around the time the elder son entered university. Although I had complaints, I was doing well in my new job and my income had increased. Thinking that dealing with my ex-husband now would only bring stress, I decided not to say anything. Today, as part of my new job, I am conducting a job interview. Please, come in. The person who came in for the interview, hoping to change jobs, entered the conference room where the interview was held and, instead of greeting, expressed surprise first. "Wait, why are you here?" My ex-husband stepped back in surprise, bumping into the still open door. It's no wonder he was shocked since only my younger son and I were sitting there as interviewers. "Please, have a seat." With a look of disbelief, as if questioning whether this was a dream, he slowly sat down without saying anything, since he had not maintained any business etiquette from the moment he entered. If this were a real interview, he would already have failed. Of course, I had no intention of passing him. I have that authority. "Why are you here?" "And that too. Are you guys part of the HR here?" "No, I saw someone from HR during the first interview." "What are you doing in this company?" "You didn't research this company properly before coming to the interview. Did you? Then, I can't hire you." "I did research for the company." "Isn't this a web consulting firm that was established 15 years ago with an annual revenue of $8 million? I applied thinking I could utilize my web marketing knowledge." "Did you look at the company's homepage? The part with the president's name?" "The president's name? You really didn't research properly. You can use your phone right now to check it." My ex-husband, looking puzzled, took out his smartphone from his bag, turned it on, and started looking up the company's homepage. My younger son and I, anticipating his reaction, grinned at each other while waiting. "The president's name is under corporate information, right? The name is A? What? Pfft." I burst out laughing at my ex-husband's reaction when he saw my name under the president's section. "Why is your name listed under the president's section?" "That's because I'm the president of this company." "What?" 15 years ago, after the divorce, I quit my job and used my experience to start a web consulting firm. My new job was being the president of a web consulting company. While it was challenging at first, as my husband said, the company grew to a scale of $8 million in annual revenue over 15 years. Unaware that I was the president, my ex-husband, like me, had moved not far from our previous home. Therefore, our living and commuting areas were quite similar. It was not strange for him to find and apply to my fast-growing company. If he was looking for a company where he could use his web marketing experience within that range. What was strange was that he missed the name of the company president during his job application. I was looking through the application documents of the candidates who passed the first interview, saw your resume, and thought it would be interesting to have you come today. Oh, of course, not checking the president's name already disqualifies you. Not focusing on results and just doing well is enough. And you, who indulged Matt with such an education, are the president. My ex-husband, realizing that someone with a different philosophy like me had succeeded in business, desperately tried to deny it, thinking that his own beliefs were not wrong. Sweat began to form on his forehead, and his eyes darted around. As his gaze fell on Matt, he spoke. Being the president must mean your abilities were high, right? I'll admit you're competent. But you becoming president must mean Matt got into the company just because of your authority, right? He's just hanging on to your results, and ultimately, it means Matt can't do anything on his own, right? That's just you indulging your kids, isn't it? How can Matt survive on his own if that's the case? I didn't get Matt into the company using my presidential powers. He went through interviews and exams just like any other job seeker, without any special treatment. That's just your word, anyone could say that. Even if he was treated specially to get in. Matt has already become a top-notch salesman, bringing in lots of business within his first year. Isn't that the result you value? He's in sales at a web consulting firm, right? That means he can't be stupid if he's doing web consulting work, right? That's not true. Being in sales means he has to be able to explain web consulting well enough to convince clients. So, he needs to always keep up with the latest knowledge and skills. In addition to sales skills, I think it's a role that's even tougher than being on site. I plan to have him become a sales engineer who will accompany the sales team in the future. Matt, who used to only play soccer, is becoming an engineer. And he's producing results within his first year? You only look at results, so you didn't notice that Matt is a genius at effort. During his elementary school years, Matt would stay and practice soccer later, and more earnestly than anyone else. He may not have become the best in soccer, but he could persist and continue to try hard in any situation, which is an important skill in society. Before the divorce, I couldn't forgive how my ex-husband tried to force Matt to give up his effortful talent through meaningless shouting. That's why I yelled at my ex-husband. After the divorce, Matt wanted to help with my company. So he went to a university specializing in information systems. Although studying was a challenge for him, he leveraged his talent for effort, spending more than twice as long as others to achieve top grades in university. Matt's existence proved that my approach to education was not mistaken. It seemed that my ex-husband, focusing solely on results, finally grasped the importance of the process, the effort, which left him speechless. Seeing my ex-husband unable to respond, I felt satisfied. But it appeared Matt wanted to press him further. Dad, the reason for applying on your resume says you want to explore a new field. But that's not true, is it? What? No, that's not a lie. I want to leverage my web marketing knowledge to learn and acquire skills in web consulting next. Isn't it true that you relied on your elder son's income and, instead of joining a major company, you ended up in some mediocre company with an okay salary, and now you're job hunting? Did you hear that from Alex? You asked knowing that. What a cunning person you've become. Well, you're half right. Should we invite him in now? Matt called out loudly toward the entrance, summoning someone from beyond the door. At the sound of the door opening, my ex-husband, still seated, turned towards the door. Alex, are you working here too? Yeah, I am. I'm learning the ropes of web consulting here now. Remember how you yelled at me to get a better job when I graduated from university? The company you were referring to was this one. I've been in touch with Mom and learned about the company. I was surprised when I saw Alex's resume right before his final interview. He applied without telling me. At that time, you must have known about this company's name from your brother. But you seem to have completely forgotten it over these 3 years. Well, it's no wonder since you, Dad, who wanted to be supported by a son working in a good position, probably weren't interested in the company details and forgot. I never thought about it like that. Why would you say such a thing? Right after you and Mom divorced, you kept treating me like I was still a little boy, insisting I should get a job at a big company in the future or that I should take care of you since you raised me. Even a grade schooler could see through such dark intentions. I've disliked you since I was a kid. Then why did you choose to come with me during the divorce? When I said I wanted to go with Mom, you thought it would make me a worse person. So, I decided to live with you, hoping maybe you would change to be more like Mom. But that was impossible. You quit your job when Alex was in university, right? You did it because you thought soon Alex would support you. And you wouldn't need to work at such a hard job in IT anymore. That's why you became a part-timer relying on Alex's future earnings, isn't it? While working part-time, living off savings and severance pay. You planned to be supported by your son once he got a job. That plan failed when he got a job at some unknown company. And that's why you confronted him about his job choice. When you became a part-timer, I gave up hoping you'd change your mindset. That's why I left home as soon as I got a job. If I had the same perseverance as Matt, maybe I could have continued trying to change your mind. No way, even I would give up if someone relied on me to become a part-timer, Dad. Being called a prodigy, the elder son, and Matt, a genius of effort. In a world where many companies struggle with succession, I am fortunate. Watching my 2 sons talking and laughing, I imagine a not-so-distant future. While I envision a bright future, my ex-husband imagines a bleak one. His expression somber. He abandoned me and Matt to be supported by the prodigious elder son, but now finds himself being abandoned by all of us. Please hire me at this company. I've been working part-time for the past 7 years, and I'm out of money. No one else will hire me. Well, that's to be expected. In this industry, new technologies and information emerge all the time. With a 7-year gap, it's hard to find work. That's why I tried to get re-employed during the 4-year gap when Alex graduated. But that didn't work out either. I've just been dragging my feet since then. I'm not interested in what you've done up to now. Results are what matter, right? Right now, you're not in demand in the IT industry. That's the result. Such. Hey, Alex. You owe me for raising you. Convince her. It seems my ex-husband has learned nothing from this ordeal. After 15 years, I finally snapped at his words. Enough. You don't raise children to have them take care of you or to boast about them to others. What debt of upbringing? Rather, we should feel grateful that our children came into our lives. My loud voice brought other employees into the conference room. Escort this man out, please. My ex-husband was led out by the arriving employees, his eyes filled with regret. However, with the results of raising Matt, who never gives up, and growing the company significantly, my ex-husband has no ground to stand on against me. I worried that my yelling might have scared the children, so I cautiously looked at their faces. Their expressions seemed to commend me, saying well done. Abandoned by me, Alex, and Matt, my ex-husband began searching for jobs outside the IT industry. Despite his long career, abandoning over 20 years of experience takes courage, which he lacked, clinging to the IT sector. This resulted in him nearly penniless. At 55, penniless, my ex-husband took a job at a supermarket, inexperienced. He is willing to work hard, but learning new things is difficult at his age, and he lacks the physical stamina. Thus, he is reprimanded by younger supervisors and even university student part-timers at his workplace. Mentally and physically challenging. Changing jobs wouldn't improve his situation much. I believe he should keep the job he has, no matter how tough it is. Our company continues to do well without change. However, reaching a revenue of $10 million is considered a barrier. Currently, we are at $8 million. Our next goal is to break through that barrier. While it's challenging, with 2 talented children, I believe we can achieve it. Your father finally passed away, huh? He was such a kind father. I really loved him. Great. We can finally get the inheritance, huh? Maybe we should go on a trip or something. That sounds nice. Let's use the money to go on a family trip to the beach resort. While I was crying in sadness, without a single word of comfort from them, these 2 people were overjoyed, thinking they could inherit everything. I had a shocking fact to tell them. Huh? What are you talking about? We're divorced, you know? No way. I didn't know. What do you mean? There's no way you could divorce Steve without his consent. My husband and mother-in-law were in panic. I had prepared the divorce papers in advance and had already filed them. There was no way I was going to give any of my father's inheritance to this awful family. My name is Angela. I'm 34 years old and work as a caretaker at a nearby nursing home. My husband, Steve, is 4 years older than me and manages a real estate agency. I met my husband at a group blind date organized by an acquaintance. At the time, I was 29 and starting to feel the pressure to get married soon. And I was invited by a friend to the gathering. The men at the event were rowdy, saying, "Angela, drink up. Cheers." I can't drink much. Come on. If you get drunk, you'll be glad you drank, right? Drink up. Feeling disgusted, I excused myself to the restroom and went outside for some fresh air. That's when the person who came next to me with a bottle of water and said, "Are you okay? I'll handle things here, so why don't you just head home today?" That was Steve. He then took care of my belongings and even gave me taxi fare to send me home. I remember, even at the party, he was the only one who wasn't getting involved in the hype, leaning against the wall by himself. That day, I thought he was kind and that probably I wouldn't see him again. However, a few days later, I was taking a break at a cafe near my work when I unexpectedly ran into Steve again. "Oh, you're Angela from that time, right?" Even though he seemed uninterested at the blind date, he had remembered my name, which made me feel a bit happy. "Oh, yes. I'm Angela. You're Steve, right? You remembered my name." "Yes, I'm Steve." Do you often come to this cafe? It's nice that you remembered my name too, Steve. This is the closest cafe to my workplace, so I often take breaks here. So, it's the same for me. My workplace is just around the corner. What a coincidence. We ended up sitting at the same table and started chatting. From that day on, whenever I went to the cafe, Steve would be there. And we would take breaks together, chatting about trivial things. About a year after meeting Steve, we started to see each other as more than friends. And our relationship began. The relationship went smoothly, and last year, on our second anniversary, Steve proposed and we got married. I was filled with excitement, looking forward to our happy days ahead. However, one day, Steve told me his mother was coming over to our house. Angela. Mom is coming over to visit today. Huh? Your mother? I asked, just as the doorbell rang. Oh, look, here she comes, he said, greeting his mother with a big smile. Even though he was already in his 40s. He was so thrilled just because his mother was visiting. He had always been like this, a supermama's boy. Even as for his current job, he had climbed to the position of manager through connections from his mother. I liked Steve, but this was the one aspect of him that I found off-putting. Steve. Long time no see. Mom, thank you for coming all this way. Come on in. Oh, Angela, you are here. His mother said, clearly displeased to see me. His mother is currently 68 years old and lives on a pension. She has a daughter and a son, Steve, but divorced her husband when Steve was still in elementary school and raised her children as a single mother. Her daughter is married and lives in New York, far enough away that they hardly ever meet. But Steve and his mother frequently stay in touch. And they meet at our house like this once a month. Probably, his mother, who loves her son dearly, always looks displeased whenever she sees me. Perhaps thinking that I've taken her son from her. Nice to see you again. It's been a while. Is something wrong today? What? Do I need a reason to come visit? No, not at all. It's just that today is the start of the Easter holiday, so I wondered if something was up. Yes, it's the start of the Easter holiday for most people. Today was also the start of the first long holiday since I married Steve. And I had been researching places we could visit, perhaps even go to the sea for a day trip. I came to stay over because it's the start of the Easter holiday today. Oh, you're staying from today? How long will you be staying? Maybe until the last day of the Easter holiday. Where are we going today? There's a festival near the park today, and they'll have fireworks. Let's go together, Steve said, completely ignoring me as he got excited with his mother about the holiday plans. Would she be staying with us until the last day of the Easter holiday? Wait a second, Steve. I wasn't informed about this. Weren't we supposed to go out just the two of us today? Oh, didn't I mention it? I didn't mean just the two of us, but I meant the three of us, including Mom. 3 of us. And you're telling me this all of a sudden. There's no place for her to sleep. I hinted at him to stop. But Steve didn't catch on at all. We can use the living room for sleeping. I'll go buy some blankets now, and besides, Mom will cook for us, right? You can take a break from household chores during Easter, Angela. It's not about taking a break from chores. Despite my desperate resistance. What? Angela, you really hate it that much when I stay over. Wow, Angela, that's terrible. No, I didn't mean it like that. I had no choice but to deny it, but inside, I was really thinking, of course, I hate it. Thus, during the Easter holiday, my mother-in-law ended up staying with us every day. "All right, I'll go buy the blankets now," Steve said, rushing out of the house. Left alone with my mother-in-law, I was really sick of his selfish behavior. From the next day, every time I suggested excitedly, "Isn't this place nice? Let's go together tomorrow," then Steve would say, "Wow. Great idea. Mom would love it here." Thus, he started taking his mother along on all our dates. In the end, I never got to spend any time alone with my husband during the Easter holiday. But today was the last day of such days. While it was sad that the long-awaited holiday was ending, I was happier thinking that my mother-in-law was going home today. "It's been a long stay, thank you," my mother-in-law said as she gathered her belongings to leave. But then Steve suddenly exclaimed, "Mom, you're leaving? Oh, right. From now on, why don't you live here with us?" I was about to lose it at his shocking suggestion, but while I was taken aback, my mother-in-law's eyes sparkled as she said, "Really? I can't believe my son would suggest such a thing. I really raised a good son. Wait a minute, please." I tried to stop my mother-in-law, then turned to my husband. "Steve, why are you deciding this on your own? Listen to my opinion too." "Huh? What's your problem? You're planning to send my mom back to her house alone? It's suddenly sprung on us, we have our own lives. And it's obviously going to be difficult. Calm down for a second. Were you always such an unpleasant person? Anyway, from today, Mom is living with us, so keep out of it," he started shouting. Hearing her son's statement, the mother-in-law seemed very pleased. "Well then, I'll pack up right away and move over here," she said cheerfully as she left the house. I'm not the type who's good at voicing my opinions, and with these two, who just don't understand, I was even less able to say anything. A few hours later, the mother-in-law arrived at our house with a lot of luggage. In this way, the cohabitation began, almost forced upon me. The days that followed were the worst every day. When I returned from work, there would only be 2 servings of food on the dining table. "Well, what's this about?" I asked my mother-in-law. "There's no food for you, so go buy something at the store." As she openly harassed me and told me daily, "You should leave this house soon." Unable to hold back, I blurted out, "You really hate me, don't you? Have I done something to make you dislike me?" Then, the mother-in-law said, "Yes, I hate you. I don't need a reason though. I just hate your presence. My presence. You're trying to monopolize Steve. Oh, how detestable," and she shooed me away. Reaching my limit, I decided to persuade Steve to reconsider living with his mother. "I can't take it anymore. Your mother only harasses me and keeps making snide remarks. I can't live with her anymore." "What are you talking about? Stop being so annoying. You're the one with the bad attitude." "What? Me? That's not true at all. I've been putting up with everything calmly." "Lie. Mom told me about your bad attitude. I believed you wouldn't do such things, but I see it now from what you've said today. You believe her over me? Of course. That's awful. If you love your mother so much, why don't you marry her?" I regretted my words as soon as they slipped out, but shockingly he said, "I would have married her if she wasn't my mom." I was taken aback by his statement. "Anyway, if you speak ill of Mom again, we're getting a divorce." "What? Divorce?" Yes, that's right. What is he even saying? Why doesn't he care about me at all? Look, I've been prepared for this. Here's the divorce papers. If you can't live with Mom, then it's divorce. Saying that, he threw the filled-out divorce papers on the floor. I couldn't believe he had prepared them. While I was enduring harassment from my mother-in-law, my husband had prepared these as a threat to keep me living with his mother. Fine. I understand. I'll leave this house starting today. Let's both take some time to think things over. Yeah, cool off for a while, he said, as if I was to blame. Although he threatened me with divorce, making a snap decision in the heat of the moment wasn't right. Besides, my father was very happy about my marriage as his only daughter. I couldn't simply get a divorce and upset him. So I chose to separate temporarily instead of divorcing, hoping that maybe my husband and mother-in-law would reconsider after some time. The next day, I returned to my parents' home and explained the situation to my father. He was quite surprised by my sudden return, but he said, "Are you okay? Don't overdo it. As long as you are happy being yourself, that's all we want. Here, cheer up now and eat some meat." Offering me some meat, my father comforted me in his awkward way. "Thank you. Oh, this meat is delicious," I said, crying as I ate. My father, a successful owner of a famous steak restaurant with many locations, is now living alone since my mother passed away last year from cancer. Ever since I was a child, he worked from morning till night every day. But on his days off, he always took me to amusement parks, aquariums, and parks, and played a lot with me. I loved my father, who was capable, kind, and tough. About 2 weeks after separating from Steve, my father returned home with a somber face. "What's wrong?" "Actually, I have stomach cancer." "What? Cancer? Why even you?" "Angela." "I'm sorry. I know you were just saddened by losing your mother last year. But, can't it be treated?" "No, it seems to have metastasized elsewhere too." "That's terrible. Angela, I know it's a hard time for you too, being separated. I'm sorry for the trouble. Don't worry about me." "But why you?" I broke down crying. Fortunately, as a caretaker and currently separated, I decided to dedicate myself to supporting my father until his passing. A few days later, I received several calls from my husband. I called him back immediately. "What do you want now? Why aren't you coming back? It's been over 2 weeks. Come back soon. My father has been diagnosed with cancer. From today, I will be taking care of him. So I won't return." Well, all right. I have my mom here anyway. When your dad dies, come back then. His dismissive response to my grieving was the worst. I thought, well, all right. When he dies. Every word he says is just terrible. Was this man really my husband? I felt as if something snapped inside me. After that, I took a leave from work and spent my days cherishing the time with my father. Angela. Thank you for everything, day after day, for such an old man like me. What are you saying? When I was little, you took care of me every day, right? It's no different now. I'm happy we can live together again. You really grew up to be a kind-hearted person. I'm so lucky. Angela, you must find happiness too. Dad. Thank you. I'm glad you're my father. A few days later, my father passed away. I was busy with the wake and the funeral, hardly having time to grieve. While I was sorting through my father's belongings, my husband called. I didn't want to talk to him and ignored his calls, but he was persistently ringing every day. I blocked him without hesitation. Honestly, I couldn't care less about my mama's boy husband anymore. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. When I checked the intercom, there were my husband and his mother. Huh? What? What are you doing here? You wouldn't answer the phone, so I came all this way to see you. I didn't want to think about it anymore. My father. My father has passed away. To my hoarsely whispered words, my husband responded not with words of comfort, but with the most insensitive remark. Oh, he did say he had cancer. So, your father finally passed away, huh? He was such a kind father. I really loved him. Angela, didn't your mother pass away recently too? That means all your father's inheritance comes to you, right? Great. We can finally get the inheritance, huh? Maybe we should go on a trip or something. That sounds nice. Let's use the money to go on a family trip to the beach resort. What? What are you talking about? Are you serious? Your father was a business owner and seemed quite wealthy. With the inheritance, we could probably go to the beach resort for a week, right? As I wept in sadness, without a single word of kindness. The two of them joyfully assumed they could inherit everything. These two, still the despicable pair I remembered, were overjoyed at their misunderstanding. It was time to set them straight. Huh? What are you talking about? We're divorced, you know? What? So, you and I are now complete strangers. That means not a single penny of my father's inheritance goes to you. Yes, those words from my father, telling me to be happy, had prompted me to decide on the divorce. I was determined to find happiness, for both my deceased mother and father. I knew I wouldn't find it with my husband and his mother. No way. I didn't hear about this. When did you file for divorce? Angela, what do you mean? There's no way you could divorce Steve without his consent. Don't lie. In panic, my husband and his mother flustered. Steve, have you forgotten? You're the one who handed me the completed divorce papers. You even signed them so diligently. After a moment of thought, my husband muttered an "oh," as if he finally remembered. That divorce paper was a joke, right? It was just to scare you a bit. Did you actually submit it to the office? Of course, I did. With despicable people like you two, I couldn't stand to see your faces anymore. It was definitely the right decision to get a divorce. What? Steve. Why did you give her such things? We were planning a trip soon with the inheritance money. What about our trip abroad now? His mother shook his shoulder. Wow, you were planning such a thing? Really despicable. I was truly suffering after my father died. To think you were waiting for his death. Sorry about that. But the inheritance. You could share a little, couldn't you? Are you stupid? It's already inherited under my name. And there's no way I'm giving a penny to someone who's a stranger now. Don't say such things. That's cruel. Cruel? Who's the cruel one here? I must have taken them by surprise by raising my voice. For a moment, my husband and his mother flinched. I've been suffering living with you two for so long. I've finally freed myself. And now what? Inheritance? That's really disgusting. Get out of this house right now. I exploded in anger. Resigned, they finally walked away, heads down. Later on, their arguments continued. Mom, it's because of your harassment that Angela left. Are you saying it's my fault? You're the one who wrote the divorce papers to scare her. What? My fault? Who do you think allowed you to live in this house in the first place? They fell into discord, and the mother-in-law moved out. And now lives alone in a small apartment on her pension. As for my husband, after becoming estranged from his mother and her connections, he could no longer work in real estate. He was a man who couldn't do anything on his own. Losing his job just because his mother wasn't around anymore was pathetic. Now, he scrapes by with odd jobs. As for me, I've fallen in love with a younger man at my workplace. Hi, Angela. If it's okay with you, could we have dinner together today? Please. His awkward invitation made me smile. I'd love to. You've made a reservation at a restaurant, right? Of course. You said you love meat, right? I've booked a steak place. Wow, our first date at a steak restaurant? That's not romantic at all. Please don't say that, he said, clinging closer. This younger man was irresistibly adorable. Mom, Dad, this time for sure, I will definitely be happy. I spoke to my parents, who were now in heaven. I've never met anyone who was worse than my husband Ben. I truly believe he was the worst man ever. It was his reaction that was especially shocking when he learned I was pregnant. I wish it had been Karen's child. Right in front of the new life in my womb, Ben let that slip. What followed was a mess of his excuses, and eventually, he pushed for a divorce. My name is Sandra Owen. I'm a 40-year-old housewife. Being a housewife allowed me to lead a stable life, thanks to Tony who remarried me. Originally, I had a former husband whom I was married to for 2 years. His name was Ben, and he was the manager of the cafe I often visited. Ben, recognizing me as a frequent visitor, struck up a conversation, and it led to a relationship. While we were dating, he seemed like any other man, and I had no bad impressions of him. Being the same age, we got along well. After 3 years of dating, we tied the knot. I became a married woman, and coincidentally, Ben changed his job and started working in a trading company. His salary increased significantly compared to when he was a cafe manager. However, after our marriage, his attitude completely changed. Ben, I want to go pay the rent tomorrow, can I get the money? After marrying Ben, I became a housewife at his request. I was supposed to manage all household chores and our finances. Each month, I would receive his pay slip and budget it for the month. Initially, I thought living on a single income would be tough. But surprisingly, we managed with just Ben's salary. Although I handled the money management, Ben never gave me access to the bank accounts or cards. So I always had to ask him verbally. Whenever I asked for money for the rent, Ben would reluctantly agree. You know, you have it easy. Just doing household chores and you can stay in this house. Saying this, Ben handed me an envelope, apparently fresh from the bank. Should I get a job then? And what about the house? I never thought the very person who asked me to be a housewife would criticize me for it. However, working in a company must be stressful. There are many men who can only vent at home. I accepted this as part of Ben's character, his weakness, and tried to interact with him with a smile. But looking back, the kindness I showed him now infuriates me. Our married life, although sometimes we had our differences, was more normal than I had expected. We weren't suddenly impoverished. I received a small allowance, and while we weren't rich, we lived moderately well. However, on the day of our 6-month anniversary, Ben didn't come home. Hey! It's our anniversary today. What time will you be back? I sent messages through the app, but they weren't read for a long time. Time passed, and before I knew it, it was past midnight. The elaborate meal I had prepared had completely cooled, and I reached my limit of sleepiness first. The next day, when I went to the living room, the side dishes that should have been wrapped were thrown in the trash. What? You came home? And what is this? This is awful. Holding back my sadness, I headed to Ben's bedroom. There, he was lying on the bed, still in his suit. Ben, wake up. I shook him gently as I spoke. After a while, Ben woke up. What, you're so noisy. He was clearly in a bad mood, but I decided to ask him anyway. The food I left on the table. Why did you throw it away? Huh? I don't remember. I came back drunk yesterday. Let me sleep. With that, Ben brushed my hand aside and fell back into a deep sleep. Looking at him, I suddenly felt empty. Moreover, at that time, I had something I hadn't yet told him. I had intended to reveal it as part of our anniversary celebration. But I couldn't even talk about it. I could feel it in my bones. Our marital relationship, although slowly, was cooling off. One day, after Ben had slept all day and I had spent my time doing household chores, I broached a serious topic in the evening when he woke up. What do you want to talk about? I want to play games. When I spoke to him, Ben clearly looked annoyed. It was disheartening for me too, but I couldn't give up here. Look, I didn't get my period last month, and it still hasn't come. When I said that, Ben stopped moving and turned to me with a muttering voice. What? That's what it means. Did you test? Did you take a test? Of course. It was positive. Finally, we're having a baby. I found myself smiling as I spoke. This child was something I had long desired. Living alone in this house without Ben was lonely. If I could raise a child, play with them. The possibilities seemed endless. However, Ben's response was not what I had hoped for. Are you kidding me? You're pregnant. What are we going to do now? Ben, you don't want children. It was my turn to be stunned. My previously smiling face froze, and I felt my heart trying to leap from my throat. Surely, I must be making a foolish face right now. Ben had said, "We'll think about it when the child is here." And I had thought he wanted children too. But reality was apparently not so simple. A child from you would never be cute. What did you say? As I stumbled over my words, Ben continued. I wish it had been Karen's child. Oops. Ben hastily covered his mouth, but of course, I did not miss that. What do you mean by that? I was fully alert to Ben's slip. Wait, don't tell me, are you cheating? Ben averted his eyes from my question. I'm asking you. I yelled out loud, causing Ben to flinch. Then he said, I just don't love you anymore. Really, there's no appeal in a housewife. I felt a violent shock and anger. It was none other than Ben himself who had asked me to be this unappealing housewife. So, you mean it would have been better if I had kept working, right? I was ready to give up my career to become your wife. Are you trampling all over that? Stop that. You're so annoying, always picking fights. So, there was no need for me to become a housewife after all. I was overwhelmed by anger and sorrow and could hardly keep my composure. Yet Ben responded indifferently, which made it all the more painful. If you hadn't become a housewife, who would have taken care of the house? I get stressed when the house is dirty. It was utterly ridiculous. We were exchanging words, but there was no emotional exchange at all. Surely, nothing I said would get through. Yet, I desperately returned words. Your heart is the dirtiest of all right now. Ben then bluntly pushed a selfish conclusion. If you think so, let's just get a divorce. It'll make things quicker. I was at a loss for words. Ben kept pressing. I won't be paying child support. I don't have the money. So, whether you have the baby is up to you. Can people really be this cruel? It's merciless. After all, we had been together for over 4 years, including our dating period. Where did it go wrong? I had tried my best to be by his side. But perhaps he was just fickle, a person who couldn't appreciate the ongoing everyday life. But now, it was too late. After the talk, Ben went out and came back with the divorce papers, already filled out on his side. As I silently stared at them, he pressured me to sign. Ben was serious. Was today the end of our marriage? As I thought this, I hurriedly ran my pen across the paper. Watching Ben's expressionless face as I signed, my pen sped up. Thus, my status changed from a married woman to a divorced, pregnant single. After the divorce, I faced harsh days. I was left with about $5,000, which I managed to get through property division. That was no surprise, as Ben had squandered our savings without my knowledge. I had confronted him about the affair, but he never confessed the truth. I thought about hiring a detective or a lawyer. But I didn't have the funds or the mental state to pursue it further. It was best to cut off the source of evil. That's how I rationalized the divorce to myself. With my environment drastically changing and only $5,000 in savings, which might last a month at best, I had to find a new home, pay the initial costs, buy necessities, and find a job. Every day felt like hell to me. But gradually, I started to see some good results. I was grateful to find a job quickly. I got hired as a receptionist at a high-rise condo because I could speak Spanish. I found a new place, moved in, and managed to save $500, though life was still tight. Even though I found a job, I was pregnant and didn't know how long I could work. During this time, I met someone. That was Tony, who would become my new husband. We often talked, mainly because I was the receptionist. How do I get to the bulky trash area again? Again? I chuckled. He had just moved in and still couldn't grasp the layout of the building. Go down to the second basement floor, move right. And then turn left, where you'll find the entrance. Thank you so much. I'm new to a high-rise condo, and it feels like a maze. After my explanation, he laughed sheepishly. His pure smile and the honesty in his demeanor were apparent. We talked more outside of work, and 3 months into my job, he asked me out. But I'm divorced, you know? And I'm pregnant. Tony was certainly attractive to me. He apparently ran a major electronics manufacturer, which manufactured TVs, air conditioners, and even the parts for the elevators in our high-rise condo. However, he was humble, which I found appealing. And his good qualities didn't end there. A child? That's fine. Actually, I'm divorced too. What? I was surprised as he explained. I'm infertile. My previous wife left me because of it. I see. But if we were to get married, could you love a child that's not your own? I felt I had asked a heavy question, almost like a stressful job interview. But he immediately responded, "There's no reason I couldn't love your child." Hearing those words, I nearly collapsed to my knees. His name is Tony Simpson, a 43-year-old corporate president, 3 years my senior. A man from a different world, willing to lift up someone like me. Honestly, I was afraid to believe it. It felt like some sort of prank. But looking into his eyes, I realized everything. His eyes were sincere, with no deceit, focused solely on me. Though I had no evidence, if Tony was my husband, he would surely cherish me. Or perhaps, like Ben, he might change. I wrestled with this in my mind until the end. But strangely, I felt a comfort with him that I had never experienced before. I stopped overthinking and took his hand. Thus, I started dating him, and we remarried soon. Just a short while ago, I couldn't have imagined remarrying so quickly. But remarriage wasn't the goal. My due date was approaching, and as it neared, I fell ill. My stomach hurts. When we married, I had to move out of the newly signed rental immediately. But Tony covered the penalty and moving expenses. Now, I live with him on the top floor of the high-rise condo. Tony, who I thought was a bit clueless, turned out to be a resident of the top floor, which made me doubt whether he really should be my spouse. Yet, when I said my stomach hurt, he panicked. Are you okay? What do you need?" Despite his cool appearance, I started seeing his flustered side. With Tony's support, I safely gave birth to a daughter. But then, a significant issue arose. The doctor had unexpected news. "Mr. Simpson, please brace yourself. Your daughter has almost no vision." "What?" Tony and I froze, unable to comprehend the doctor's words as we looked at each other. The doctor continued with a sympathetic expression. "Her vision won't lead to complete blindness, but it will be quite weak." Although initially confused by the doctor's words, we knew that our newborn daughter was not at fault. Definitely, abandoning her because she couldn't see was not an option. We were grateful she came into this world, and we named her Heaven. Since then, apart from her visual impairment, Heaven grew up without any issues and recently celebrated her 9th birthday. "Tony, did you find what you were looking for?" Today, we were supposed to go shopping together for Heaven's birthday present. "Sorry, you two go ahead to the store. I'll catch up." Hearing this, I left the house with Heaven. "Mommy, is Daddy coming?" "He'll come later, don't worry." Because her vision is limited, Heaven held my hand tightly as we walked. I was describing the path to her when someone suddenly spoke to me. "Hey, aren't you Sandra?" Turning toward the voice, I was shocked to find Ben Miller, my ex-husband who had left me 10 years ago. "Ben, what are you doing in such a fancy neighborhood? What does it matter to you?" I suddenly became aware of my shallow breathing. I couldn't seem to get enough oxygen. Sensing my distress, Heaven spoke up. "Mommy? Who are you talking to?" "Stay quiet for a bit, Heaven." As I tried to calm Heaven, my ex-husband responded. "Wow, is this the kid that was born? Why has she been squinting the whole time?" "That's none of your business," I retorted, and Ben paused for a moment before replying in a mocking tone. Can't she see?" Puffed. "The kid's defective just like her mother." Laughing loudly by himself, passers-by stared at him with puzzled looks. I felt embarrassed being in such a situation, troubled that I had dragged Heaven into this. This man always knew how to upset me. And as I was reflecting on this, a voice suddenly came from behind. "Sandra, Heaven, what's going on?" Turning around, I saw Tony standing there. At the same moment, Ben began to tremble when he saw him. Mr. Simpson. Hearing Ben's words, I was in disbelief. Tony asked him. Weren't you the one who came for an interview the day before yesterday, Ben? What are you doing here? I could tell from being with Tony often that his voice was displeased. To others, it might seem like a normal inquiry, but I couldn't be fooled. Ben was visibly shaken by Tony's words. Well, I was thinking about moving after getting an offer from your company. So I was checking out the area. Is that so? And do you think you'll be joining our company? The conversation seemed more like an interrogation by Tony. With each word, Ben became more flustered. The way he had behaved towards my daughter and me moments ago seemed like a complete lie. I thought the interview went well. Ben muttered weakly. Watching the two of them, I could piece together what was happening. Ben had come for a mid-career interview at Tony's company and was now waiting for the outcome. Tony had likely been one of the interviewers. As Ben honestly shared his thoughts on the interview, Tony's face smiled, but his eyes were cold. Taking a breath, Tony then looked straight at Ben and began to speak. Do you think someone who speaks ill of my own wife and child belongs in my company? With Tony's words, it became clear that our previous conversation had been overheard. What? Your wife and child? No, I didn't mean. Ben was stunned and immobilized by the revelation, but Tony did not relent in his pursuit. Why are you surprised? I've heard about your past with Sandra. I never imagined that the person applying to my company was you. At Tony's words, Ben was at a loss for words. His lips twitched as if he wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Additionally, he was visibly sweating profusely from his forehead. Well. Ben was completely cornered. In this situation, there was nothing he could say that would allow him to prevail over Tony. Tony's momentum was unstoppable. When you insulted my wife and child, it was as if you insulted me. Insulting me is one thing, but I will never forgive someone who speaks ill of my precious family. Ben let out an inaudible grunt and froze with his mouth open. For now, you're not hired. There's no need to discuss it further with HR. Tony coldly delivered the verdict, and Ben collapsed on the spot. He then started to mumble something, though it was unclear whether he was speaking to us or just to himself. I turned down marriage proposals and boasted to everyone about this job. I even bought a new car. And now, to think I'd fail an interview over a single insult. Observing his demeanor, I could tell that Ben still did not think he was at fault. But Tony felt the same way and said mercilessly, if you cannot grasp the severity of that single offense, then you understand nothing. Please disappear forever from our sight. The normally gentle Tony who showed his kindness to me was not present now. Instead, he resembled a noble male lion standing alone to protect his pack. At the same time, I felt proud of him and reassured about my decision to marry him. Please, never appear before us again, as Tony said. Ben gave no response. Seeing this, Tony raised his voice a bit more and shouted. Well, and Ben responded in a frightened voice, right, I got it. My daughter, who had been sensing only the voices, clung to me, and for once, I was glad that her vision was impaired. It was not appropriate for my growing daughter to witness such a dismal scene. Ben, scolded by us, walked away with a soulless expression. His aura was one of complete despair, but I felt no sympathy for him. He had caused me much suffering. Frankly, I thought he deserved to suffer even more. Although Ben's sudden appearance caused a disturbance. Once it was over, Tony returned to his usual calm self. Tony, thank you. Don't mention it. Tony smiled back at me as I thanked him. However, in a typical clumsy moment, he exclaimed, "Oh, I left my wallet," and had to go back home. I couldn't help but burst into laughter at his action. But I knew that with him, life would surely be enjoyable from now on. You had leukemia, didn't you? Can't believe you're still alive. My father, who had chosen his mistress over me, and my mother 15 years ago when I was diagnosed at age 10, uttered these unbelievable words when we unexpectedly met at a restaurant. And who's that girl next to you? Surely she's not your child. The father's gaze shifted to Mia, who sat beside me, his expression sour. Yes, she's my daughter. I got married 3 years ago. I thought you'd be struggling and living in poverty. Just like you and your mother, always a burden to society. Angered by his words, I stood up, unable to tolerate any insult towards my mother, who had raised me single-handedly. Well, it's been a while. Welcome to my restaurant. My father, surprised by my mother's words, visibly widened his eyes in clear astonishment. What, you're joking? That's not funny at all. Oh, I'll explain properly then. Seeking revenge, my mother began to tell him about our current lives. I'm Anna, 25 years old. Today, I am here for lunch at a famous hamburger specialty restaurant with my husband Tony and our 1-year-old daughter Mia. This popular restaurant recently expanded its stores, a place we had always wanted to visit. My mother was supposed to join us for lunch too, but she's running late due to a train delay. Mama, gimme. Yes, just wait a bit longer. I watched my daughter, Mia, pointing at the food on the next table, clearly hungry and begging for food. Did you hear from Mom? Yes, she just arrived at the station. She should be here soon. Do you think the restaurant is hard to find? I'll go pick her up from the station. Tony, thank you. With that, Tony quickly put on his coat and left the restaurant. I thought, he's always so thoughtful. I'm glad I married him. I've always wanted a warm family because my parents divorced when I was 10. My mother told me that even when I was little, my father prioritized having fun over taking care of his kids. I remember him ignoring me even when I was sick in bed, and my parents often fought. Still, my mother took great care of me. She always came to my school events, but my father, busy with work, never came. The turning point for our family came when I was 10. One day, I was bedridden at home with a high fever. Every doctor we saw said it was just a cold. However, the fever continued for weeks without any sign of subsiding. As 2 weeks approached, my parents argued about whether to take me to a university hospital. I've told you many times. She's had a high fever for 2 weeks. It's just a coincidence. The doctor said it's a cold. Besides, do you know how much it costs to go to a university hospital? It's just a waste of money. How can you say that when Anna is suffering? Just do whatever you want. I'm not giving you any money. With that, my father left. I was delirious, but I still remember his back as he walked away. Shortly after, my mother took me to the university hospital, and I underwent a thorough examination. When it was over, the doctor spoke seriously to my mother. Please stay calm. The tests show she has leukemia. That can't be. If we had delayed the tests any longer, it could have been dangerous. You did well to bring her in. Hearing that, my mother apparently cried, relieved she hadn't made a mistake. I was soon admitted to the hospital and began treatment. Fortunately, the treatment started quickly and I was young enough to recover well. So my condition stabilized in about a month. My mother had kept in touch with my father, but he never visited during my hospitalization. When I was discharged and returned home, my father was no longer there. As I was confused, my mother calmly explained, "Anna, listen carefully. Your father probably won't come back." "Mom, what do you mean?" "Your father had been seeing another woman. As soon as he found out you were sick, he stopped contacting us. I guessed he would just leave. Can't I see Dad anymore? He chose his mistress over us." Understanding this, I felt an overwhelming sadness. Seeing me about to cry, my mother hugged me gently. "It's okay, you have me. I won't let you feel lonely." As she said that, she hugged me even tighter. From then on, she raised me alone. While working, she took care of me and showered me with love. Though our time together was short, I never felt lonely. Gradually, I wanted to become a strong and kind woman like her. As I remembered these old times, I waited for Tony to return with my mother. Then, a familiar voice called out my name. "Anna, is that you?" I turned around in surprise to see an elderly man in ragged clothes. His beard was overgrown, and his hair looked unwashed for days. He was far from well dressed. I thought, I feel like I've seen him somewhere. I racked my brain but couldn't remember where. As I looked puzzled, the man laughed mockingly. "Don't you remember your own father's face? You're still foolish as ever." "Dad. Why are you here?" "What do you mean why?" "I came to eat." "Is that a problem?" "Not really." Indeed, his smiling face resembled my father's from long ago. But my father should be 55 now. The man standing before me, dressed as he was, looked over 70. I thought I would never see my father again after he abandoned us. As a child, every time I remembered him and felt sad, I tried hard to forget him. Perhaps that's why I didn't recognize him immediately. More than the joy of seeing my father after so many years, I felt a complex mix of emotions. At a loss for words, my father spoke again. "I mean, I didn't think you'd still be alive." "What do you mean?" "You know, you had leukemia, right?" Thanks to Mom taking me to the hospital right away, I recovered quickly. I still go to the hospital regularly. If we had delayed even a little, I might not have been able to live a normal life. "Ha, that's good," I thought, his casual remark, after he insisted on leaving me alone back then. I felt anger rise within me as my father laughed it off as if it were someone else's problem. I glared at him, but he continued the conversation without concern. "So, who's the girl next to you? Surely not your child?" I looked at Mia sitting beside me. My father's expression was somewhat displeased. "Yes, she's my daughter. I got married 3 years ago. Her name is Mia. She's 1 year old." What's the problem?" "It's none of your business. I thought you'd be struggling and living in poverty. After all, you and Susan are just burdens to society." "How dare you say that?" I stood up abruptly and raised my voice. Mia looked up at me, startled. I knew talking to him was pointless. I understood that. But I couldn't stand him insulting my mother, who had endured so much to raise me. Indeed, at the time, it seems it was quite a struggle to come up with the money for my sudden hospitalization and subsequent frequent visits. I saw my mother pleading with the hospital to delay payments while I was admitted. That's why I am so grateful and respectful toward her. And each time, my disdain for my father grew. With Mia present and not wanting to disturb the other customers, I couldn't afford to start a fight here. As my father and I were glaring at each other, Tony returned with my mother. Seeing me standing, Tony asked worriedly, "Anna, what happened? And who is this man?" "This is my father." "What? I thought your parents divorced when you were little." "Why is he here?" "I don't know. He just happened to be here. So, I came here to eat." "Got a problem with that?" my father said grumpily, creating a tense atmosphere among us. Then my mother, standing behind Tony, addressed my father. "Wow, long time no see. How many years has it been?" "Ah, you're here too. It's been a while. I never thought we'd meet again." "Why are you here? This place is popular lately, right?" "Wanted to try it out." "Oh, I'm glad. Welcome to my restaurant." My father's eyes widened, clearly taken aback by my mother's words. And he began to laugh weakly. "Ha, your restaurant? That's a good joke." "It's no joke. This is my restaurant. Well, one of many I own." "What do you mean?" My father was confused by my mother's unexpected statement. But she explained calmly. "Just as I said. I own this hamburger specialty store. It was originally a small business started by my father. After you left, I started helping out to make ends meet. Thanks to Mom getting involved, the stores started to multiply. Aren't we about to go national soon?" "No way you could do that. It's just a coincidence, isn't it?" My father seemed unwilling to acknowledge my mother's success. Just as I was about to retort, Tony spoke up. "Father, no offense, but maybe it's time you accepted it? Are you Anna's husband? What does this have to do with you? What do you even know?" "Well, it does concern me. Actually, I work at the corporate headquarters of this company." "That's right. Tony is one of our promising young executives. He's currently working as an executive candidate at the headquarters. Susan's ideas and proposals are always customer-oriented and have gained a lot of support within the company." "Thank you. I have high expectations for you." No, thank you very much." Tony and my mother spoke happily. Seeing them, I felt proud. Glancing at my father, his mouth hung open in shock. He looked down on my mother, who had become a company owner. And me, a frail child who married a promising young employee and had a child. He couldn't accept that the two he abandoned were leading happy lives. "What? I don't care about you guys." With that parting shot, my father hurried to the entrance. However, he hadn't paid yet and was stopped by a staff member trying to leave the restaurant without paying. He was then taken to the back office. After a while, a police car pulled up in front of the store. 3 officers entered and headed to the office. Watching the scene, a person who appeared to be the manager hurried over to my mother to explain the situation. It turns out my father was a habitual offender of dining and dashing. Not just at this hamburger store, but he had also caused trouble at other nearby stores. This time, he was caught in the act and arrested. He's been resisting the police. I could hear him talking loudly. It seems he's been having trouble with his family, and that led to his actions. After saying this to my mother, the manager returned to the office. I wondered what kind of situation had led my once hardworking father to resort to such measures. Seeing the father who had lost all semblance of his former self, I felt a bit of pity. The atmosphere at our table went completely silent. Then, my mother suddenly clapped her hands, looking at me and Tony. "Now that the troublemaker is gone, let's enjoy a delicious meal." "Mom, the new seasonal hamburger is really something special." "Tony, I'm sorry for involving you in our family issues." "No, I don't mind at all." As my mother spoke, I felt my tense heart begin to relax. She must have been trying to create a bright atmosphere for me and Tony. I thought, I guess I still can't match up to my mother. With that thought, I decided to forget about my father and enjoy lunch with the four of us. A few days later, I received a call from an unknown number on my smartphone. I thought, I've been contacting various places lately for Mia's daycare. Maybe it's related to that. I didn't have any strong leads, but I answered the phone anyway. To my dismay, it was the last voice I wanted to hear. It was my father. "Hello? Anna? Dad? How did you get my number?" "Well, that doesn't matter, does it?" Laughing carelessly, I wondered where he had gotten my number. Despite my anxiety, now wasn't the time to worry about that. The more pressing question was why he had called. Given that he had been driven to petty crimes, I didn't know what to expect from him now. I cautiously asked him, "So, what do you want? What are you planning to do to us?" "Hey, don't be so cold. I've actually got a good proposal for you and your mom." "What do you mean by a good proposal?" "Listen up and be happy. I'll remarry Susan. Knowing her, she's probably still single, right?" "Dad, do you realize what you're saying?" "Of course, I do. Aren't you happy? Is this man insane? How could he think that abandoning us and then proposing to remarry would make us happy? There's no way my mother would accept it. How could I be happy about that?" "Have you forgotten what you did to us in the past?" "You mean when I left?" "If you want me to apologize, I'm sorry. The selfishness of my father infuriates me. I feel like I might say something harsh in anger. But I can't upset him now. I have my mother, Tony, and Mia to think about. I need to stay calm for their sake." My left hand, holding the smartphone, trembles with anger. Gripping it with my right hand to steady it, I asked my father, "So, what brought this on all of a sudden? What happened with the woman you were with?" "Oh, her? After I left home, a while later, we had a son." "I see. I thought I'd live happily with my new family. Especially since my sick daughter was out of the picture. But that woman, she was reckless with money. Even after our son was born, she never stopped going out. Kept buying designer bags, and before I knew it, she had run up debts without my knowledge. By the time I realized, she had vanished." My father spoke calmly about his situation, which was more troubled than I had imagined. I had assumed he was living happily after leaving us, but it seems that was not the case. His disheveled appearance and his dine-and-dash habits now made sense. He must have had his struggles. But that doesn't mean I should feel sorry for him. Look, she's got money, right? Think of it as filial piety and ask your mom, would you? Unbelievable. What? Don't bring this up now. How could you think I would forgive you? Hey, calm down. I am calm. Handle your own money. And don't ever involve us again. With that, I hung up the phone. He abandoned my mother and me when we were vulnerable. And now he turns to us when he's in trouble. He truly is the worst. I immediately informed my mother about the call. So I told him never to contact us again. I see. I'm sorry you had to go through that, Anna. It's okay. It's unbelievable, though. Did he really think I'd accept such a ridiculous proposal? My mother sighed in disbelief. She told me to ignore any further attempts to contact us and hung up the phone. Just as my mother predicted, calls from what seemed to be my father's number came several times. I ignored all of them, and eventually, they stopped. He must have given up after being ignored so thoroughly. One day, I took Mia to visit my mother, who had just finished a busy period and was happy to see her granddaughter. Mia was also having a great time. While chatting with my mother and playing with Mia, the doorbell suddenly rang. Oh, what could that be? Maybe it's a delivery? Should I get it? You keep playing with Mia. Would you? Thank you. I stood up and went to the intercom. My blood ran cold when I saw who was on the screen. It was my father. I thought, how? I never told him where we moved. My heart raced as I struggled to stay calm and breathed deeply. Mom, Dad's here. What do you mean? He shouldn't know where we live since he left and we moved. He might have come here because I ignored his calls. But how did he find the house? While talking with my mother, the doorbell rang again. We decided to pretend no one was home, trying not to make any noise. However, the doorbell continued to ring repeatedly. Despite our continued silence, the knocking on the front door began, growing louder and more insistent. Hey, I know you're in there. Open the door. What should we do? You guys have money. Hurry up and hand it over. My father was getting increasingly agitated, raising his voice dangerously. It wasn't safe anymore, not for my mom or Mia. Something had to be done. Just then, my mother suddenly stood up and walked toward the door. And to my disbelief, she opened it. I thought, Mom, what are you doing? I hurried after her to the entrance. As my mother opened the door, my father tried to barge in. Despite this, my mother began to speak calmly. What are you doing? It's about time you opened up. You have money, right? Hand it over quickly. Yes, we do have money. But there's none for you. Just as my father attempted to strike her, a police officer grabbed his arm from behind. All right, calm down, please. The police? We received a call earlier. You're under arrest for trespassing. Trespassing? But she's my wife. Ignoring my father's protests, the police officers quickly restrained him and took him to their patrol car. As I stood there dumbfounded, my mother calmly locked the door. Mom, how could you remain so calm? You said there was a call earlier, but who? Oh, I called the police while you were checking the intercom. Really? I didn't notice at all. The police can't arrest someone without catching them in the act. That's why I deliberately let him in. As I slumped down, exhausted by the ordeal, my mother chuckled. How strong could one person be? I wondered if I would ever catch up to her. Later, we were informed by the police that my father was jailed. He was not only arrested for this incident but was also charged with multiple other offenses, including shoplifting and dine and dashing. Unable to afford bail, he remained in custody. My mother also concerned herself with my father's son, contacting child services. They later informed us that the boy, now a junior in high school, was living in a facility. He was doing well and excelling academically. So they assured us there wasn't much to worry about. Although he wasn't living with his father, he occasionally visited him. Look, Mia, here's the new hamburger. Eat up. Thanks, Grandma. Years have passed, and Mia has grown significantly. Watching their cheerful conversation fills me with happiness. I never thought I'd be so disrupted by my father at this age. While I feel sorry for him, I certainly don't aspire to be like him. Instead, I'll use his example as a lesson on how not to live, striving for a happy life. I can't work at that company. My grandson had left for the induction ceremony but returned home in just 30 minutes. As a child born premature and frail, he had overcome many hardships and finally landed a job at a major corporation. However, at the ceremony, he encountered the company president's daughter, who had bullied him in middle school. My name is Debbie Hansen. I'm 75 years old. Officially, I'm the chairperson of a company that produces next-generation semiconductor materials. Originally a small-town workshop, this business was started by my late husband. It began as a small factory that produced limited quantities with local craftsmen. But it expanded gradually as we focused on technological innovation and quality improvement, eventually becoming a global corporation providing next-generation semiconductor materials. My husband passed away 5 years ago, and now my son has taken over as the president. Initially, he was reluctant to take the role. I'm better suited to working on the factory floor making parts. I think you'd be better as president, Mom. But I'm already 70 years old, and sooner or later, you'll have to take over. We ended up reluctantly passing the presidency back and forth. I considered promoting someone from our long-serving employees, but they were all craftsmen at heart, and none seemed right for the position. My late husband was also not good at dealing with external affairs. I wonder if being a craftsman runs in the family? Eventually, I took on the position of chairperson to support my son, and he settled into the role of president. Over time, he grew into it and, thanks to his wife's support, he began relying less on me. Nowadays, my pleasures are taking care of our cat and watching my grandson grow. Despite having worked desperately with my husband to expand the business, he left for the afterlife, leaving me behind. You've gotten old too, huh? I reminisce about the past while petting our cat, Loki. It was my grandson, Kevin, who had just started elementary school, who brought Loki home as a kitten. Can I keep it if I take good care of it? He had asked. His parents were hesitant, but my husband and I, being soft on our grandson, agreed. Kevin really took good care of the kitten, and Loki became very attached to him. Kevin was born premature, and it was uncertain if he would grow well due to his small size. We could only watch him from outside the incubator, and prayed that he would grow up without any issues. When he was finally discharged from the hospital, we were overjoyed. Although he was not very robust, often falling ill. Yet, it was adorable to see him going to school with his backpack, despite his small stature. When he wanted to keep the cat he found after school, refusing him was out of the question. He's so small and cute, I said as Kevin held the kitten. Will he grow up okay? Kevin asked worriedly. Of course, you were very small when you were born too, but you grew up just fine. I reassured him. Growing up healthy, that was a wish shared by our whole family. Kevin wasn't very sturdy even after starting elementary school, often catching colds which then turned into bronchitis, causing him to miss school. However, he was very bright. Even when he missed school, he would read textbooks, solve practice problems, and read books at home. Perhaps he enjoyed imagining himself traveling through space, or battling villains in his stories because he couldn't run around outside like other kids. His grades were excellent, almost as if his intelligence compensated for his frail body. Wishing he could be less brilliant and more healthy might have been a luxurious worry. In middle school, Kevin decided he wanted to strengthen his body by joining a sports club. He initially wanted to join the judo club, but we all opposed that. Not wanting to see our grandson getting thrown around and coming home bruised. We suggested tennis instead. A more individual-paced sport that wouldn't burden his teammates. Kevin agreed, and my husband and I happily provided him with a racket and shoes. I've been physically weak since I was little and joined this club hoping to get healthier. I might cause some trouble, but please bear with me. Kevin greeted his new club members. The coach, seniors, and other new members were very welcoming. Although Kevin was probably treated a bit like the underdog. Everyone except Megan Irving was supportive. Megan was a classmate of Kevin's. According to him, she was the daughter of a company president. Did well academically, was good at sports, and always had a group of followers. Ah, she's popular, then? I remarked. No, not really. Those girls just stick around because she treats them to things. And gives them presents. She's really awful. Kevin's friend, Sean, commented. Kevin had made friends with Sean in middle school. They were in the same class and both belonged to the tennis club. Unlike Kevin, Sean was tall and robust, the picture of health. Gentle Kevin and outgoing Sean, although different in personality, were very good friends. That girl, Megan, targets Kevin and harasses him. What? Why would she? No one in the family had heard such things from Kevin. He wasn't the type to be disliked or attacked by others. Megan can't beat Kevin in test scores. Sean explained her relentless character. Even so, to harass. She hides his shoes during club activities. Hits tennis balls far away on purpose to make Kevin fetch them. And sometimes pretends to miss and hits her serves directly at him. This was something I couldn't overlook. I'll go to the school and complain. No, maybe I should go directly to her parents. I was furious. Please don't, Grandma. I'm fine, really. If you do that, I'd be too embarrassed to go to school. Kevin stopped me, and I held back, realizing children have their own ways of handling things. The burden of the tennis club. A boy who's good at studies but clumsy in sports is trash. A poor kid from a small-town factory. Apparently, Megan and her group of girls would say such things audibly enough for Kevin to hear, even outside club time. At that time, our family's workshop was still small. Just when next-generation semiconductor materials were starting to gain market demand. The building and factory were still old and small, and from the outside, it might have looked like a poor workshop. But for someone to look down on others just because she's a company president's daughter was unthinkable. Although Kevin asked us to remain silent, it was infuriating. Despite everything, Kevin continued to work hard, occasionally missing club activities due to poor health. But his academic performance remained top of his class. Megan Irving, the president's daughter, was evidently frustrated by this. When Kevin moved to a different class in the second year of middle school, we were relieved. Sean continued to be in the same class, and both Kevin and I were happy. However, Kevin still had to face Megan in the tennis club. Once, when he found his hidden shoes, the laces were all cut. These are important shoes my grandma bought for me. Why would you do something like this? Kevin confronted her. What? You have proof for something? I understand that a pair of shoes is a big deal for a poor person, she sneered back. There was no proof. Perhaps Megan had commanded her followers to do it. It's harder to deal with such an evil-natured person than the harassment itself, Kevin admitted for the first time, sounding defeated. I was worried he might develop a distrust of women because of this. Kevin became classmates with Megan Irving again in 3rd grade. And the harassment in the classroom resumed. Since he was in a different class from Sean. My family and I did not find out about this until much later. Before tests, someone would hide Kevin's notes. During a science experiment, someone broke his equipment, preventing him from proceeding with the experiment. Above all, the backbiting and slander on social media severely hurt Kevin's heart. Some kids spread baseless rumors just for fun, even if they don't mean any harm. Despite this, Kevin continued with the tennis club until his summer retirement, maintaining his grades throughout. However, the stress eventually took its toll, already not the most robust. Kevin fell ill with acute nephritis just before high school entrance exams due to a cold, which forced him into hospitalization. He missed both the exams and his middle school graduation. Our whole family regretted not acting sooner to help him. But Kevin himself seemed surprisingly unaffected. It's okay. I can take the exam next year. With all this time to study, maybe I'll aim for a higher-ranked school, he said with a laugh. True to his word, Kevin passed the entrance exam for a better high school the following year. He proved to be stronger than I had ever imagined. High school life seemed enjoyable for him. He joined the tennis club again, and even participated in matches, though he mostly lost in the first round. We celebrated his first match win with a family gathering. Although Sean went to a different high school, he remained close with Kevin and came to celebrate with him. Life's so much less stressful without Megan Irving around. I wanted to punch her when you were hospitalized. Megan had been delighted when Kevin was hospitalized, peeking during the graduation ceremony with taunts like, "You couldn't even take the exam, right? Serves you right, you're definitely a middle school dropout now. It's good you didn't hit her. If that had ruined your chances for further education, I'd have felt even worse. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Let's stop talking about her. Yeah. I don't even want to remember her, and hopefully, we'll never see her again." With that, Kevin's trials seemed to have ended, or so everyone thought. When college application season arrived, Kevin mentioned, "I'm thinking of going to MIT to study engineering. It could help with our family business in the future." The university was renowned for its research in semiconductor technology. That's great to hear, but remember, you're free to choose whatever path you like. I and the rest of the family insisted. This is what I love. I want to study semiconductor technology to help expand our factory. Kevin replied, his eyes shining with determination. My husband was bedridden at the time, but hearing this from Kevin brought him great joy. Our factory is in safe hands, he had said. He passed away before hearing of his college acceptance. But his last days were peaceful, watched over by our family. Kevin thrived in college, even finding a lovely girlfriend through Sean's girlfriend. And they often went on double dates. Recently, he's become much healthier, hardly ever catching colds. In his senior year, I asked him, "Kevin, do you plan to work at our factory right after you graduate? I think it might be better for you to work at another company first, to broaden your experience as a working adult." Yeah, I've been thinking that too. I'd feel too sheltered if I stayed with the family business right away. Kevin agreed with a laugh. Kevin, always at the top of his class, would likely be welcomed at any company. Then, on a spring morning, he left for the induction ceremony at a well-known electronic components manufacturer in our local area. However, Kevin returned home just 30 minutes after he had left, looking shocked and angry. Kevin? What happened? What about the induction ceremony? Surprised by his upset demeanor, I asked. And he silently pulled out a name tag that read something unbelievable. Middle school dropout incompetent. What's this? A name tag? Given to me by Ms. Megan Irving. What? It turns out she's the daughter of the president of the company I joined. According to Kevin, Megan was now working in the HR department of that company, responsible for managing and training new employees. And it was her duty to distribute name tags. I was shocked to see your name on the list of new employees. I work in HR here, Megan had said with a smirk, handing over the name tag in an envelope. Nice to see you again. Hearing that, he said it brought back all the unpleasant memories from middle school in an instant. Everything just went dark. When I looked inside the envelope and saw this name tag, I just couldn't bring myself to attend the ceremony. Kevin spoke with evident distress. Was Megan still holding a grudge because Kevin had outperformed her academically? After all the harassment in middle school, which had led to Kevin's illness and delayed his education, the label middle school dropout incompetent was clearly just another act of spite. A look at the employee list would show that Kevin was neither a middle school dropout nor incompetent. Perhaps that was what fueled Megan's jealousy even more. I said I should work at another company for a while. I never imagined such a terrible coincidence. It's not your fault, Grandma. But I can't work at that company. Of course, I thought. Who knows what kind of harassment he would face there? I decided to act immediately, determined not to fail to protect Kevin again. I grabbed my smartphone and called the president of the company Kevin was supposed to join. Hello, Mr. President? Ah, Mrs. Hanson. Thank you for your help. What can I do for you today? My grandson attended your company's induction ceremony earlier. Yes, he joined your company, thank you. Well, about that, he received a name tag from your HR department that reads middle school dropout incompetent. What? Is this how your company welcomes new employees? If that's the corporate culture at your company, I may need to reconsider our relationship. What? Wait a minute, please. The $35 million contract we discussed the other day, I'm returning it to the drawing board, I stated firmly. The contract involved supplying next-generation semiconductor materials from our company for use in their new products, expected to significantly enhance their competitive edge in the market due to our cutting-edge technology. Surely there must be some mistake. We have no such employees who would do such a thing. Are you suggesting my grandson is lying? No, not at all. We'll investigate immediately. Could you please wait a moment? The name tag was handed out by Ms. Megan Irving from HR, you know? President Irving. What? Before talking about training employees, perhaps you should have corrected your daughter's education first. I could hear the president trying desperately to say something on the other end of the phone, but I unilaterally hung up. Surprise spread across Kevin's eyes. Grandma, you didn't have to do that. I think Kevin was worried that my actions might have jeopardized a $35 million contract. It's okay. There are plenty of other companies that want to do business with us. I will do anything to protect your effort and pride. I made the decision on my own, but I believe Kevin's parents would feel the same way. A few hours later, I received a call from my son at the factory. It seems that President Irving and his daughter Megan Irving had come to visit. I was at home, just behind the factory, so I asked them to come around to the house. I hadn't told my son and his wife about the incident yet. Kevin had gone up to his room, likely not wanting to see Megan's face. I decided to confront President Irving alone. I am truly sorry for what my daughter has done. The president apologized deeply, but his daughter stood by with a sullen attitude, thinking about how this girl had tormented my dear grandson made my anger resurface. "Aren't you going to apologize?" prompted by her father. She said with no sincerity, "I'm very sorry." "May I ask why you did such a thing?" "It was nothing. I just saw the name of a middle school classmate on the new employee list and wanted to play a little prank." I was astounded she could say such a thing. However, President Irving seemed to believe her. "Well, it was a prank, not commendable, but she is reflecting on it, so please, let's proceed with the contract as planned." It was clear she wasn't really reflecting. The president then said, "I understand you love your grandson, but business is a different matter. Besides, I heard that you had retired from the field." It seemed he thought I was making unreasonable demands out of affection for my grandson. "Understood. May I have a little time to think?" I managed to say calmly, though I was thinking of pursuing this thoroughly. "Thank you very much." President Irving pleaded and left with his daughter, leaving behind some sweets. Can you believe it? Megan Irving? That night, Sean, who had come to celebrate Kevin's new job, exclaimed in shock, "I thought we'd never see her again, but look at this. She hasn't changed at all, still acting like less than a middle schooler." Seeing the name tag handed to Kevin at the induction ceremony, Sean couldn't hide his anger. That president doesn't know what his daughter did back in middle school. Now that it's come to this, I'm determined to take decisive action, I said, and Sean, as I hoped, replied, "I'll help too. We need to catch her." "No, both of you, it's okay. Don't go overboard because of me." Kevin tried to stop us, but Sean and I said, "Kevin, being nice is one of your best traits, but being nice alone won't get you through life." Exactly. If we let this go, who knows who else she might harm. No, she's definitely caused trouble at her company as well. Convinced by us, Kevin seemed to make up his mind. Okay. I have a private web diary from middle school that might serve as evidence. The diary Kevin showed us was a detailed record of those times. It contained even worse incidents than those Sean had told us about. And reading it brought tears to my eyes. I can't forgive her. Sean was shaking with anger. Evidence of Megan Irving's middle school bullying of Kevin quickly accumulated. Testimonies from tennis club members and classmates were gathered by Sean. Even the girls who had been Megan's followers, who secretly disliked her, were now willing to speak openly about the past. Sean diligently recorded their statements on video, along with Kevin's hospital records from the time and the recent name tag incident. As well as Kevin's diary, we had ample evidence. I made an appointment with President Irving and visited the company. "Have you reconsidered?" Greeted with a smile by the president, I showed him the evidence I had brought. As his face turned pale, I said, "These are the actions your daughter took against my grandson during middle school. Because of this, my grandson fell ill and delayed his advancement by a year." The president made an internal call and summoned his daughter to his office. "Megan, what have you done?" he yelled as she entered the room, looking bewildered. Upon seeing me, She seemed to understand the situation. Is there anything else? Her attitude was defiant to the extreme. Listen. There is evidence of what you did in middle school. What would you do if you were sued? What are you talking about, Dad? Those minor pranks from so long ago are well past the statute of limitations. It appeared that the daughter was more knowledgeable about the law than her father. Indeed, it would be difficult to legally pursue matters after so much time had passed. However, the president's daughter seemed to have forgotten that. I was not just some old lady who came here out of affection for her grandson. Then, we will no longer be doing business with your company. Are you okay with that? I informed him of my decision, and the president slumped in resignation. Subsequently, our company contracted with a competitor of President Irving's company to supply the semiconductor materials we had intended for them. After losing access to our materials, Irving's company turned to foreign materials and faced numerous defects in their products, severely damaging their reputation and causing their stock prices to plummet. Conversely, the company we began supplying received high praise for their new products, marking a stark contrast in fortunes. After this incident, President Irving fired his daughter but, out of parental affection, helped her secure a position at a subcontractor. To make matters worse, an article titled, "Astonishing Daughter of a Major Company's President" was published online. Sean, who now worked at a publishing company, wrote the article using the information gathered during the evidence collection. He obtained permissions from the tennis club members and classmates, and even posted edited videos of their testimonials. While the company and real names were omitted, internet users quickly identified them. The numerous accounts of bullying resonated with others who had suffered similar experiences. The 35 million incident became a topic of discussion among industry insiders, further tarnishing President Irving's company's reputation. Sean continued his investigation, obtaining additional disclosures from people connected to the company where Megan had worked. As I had suspected, she had been a bully at the company as well, exploiting her position in HR and her status as the president's daughter to mistreat colleagues and superiors. This article went viral, and even Megan's photo ended up online. Her new workplace was identified, leading to relentless online attacks. Overwhelmed, her new employer dismissed her. Even Megan, tough as she was, suffered greatly and eventually secluded herself at home. She's supposedly seeing a psychiatrist now. But unless her personality changes, I doubt it'll help. She's planning to flee overseas, but the internet is the same everywhere. Sean told me this after receiving praise from his editor for the article. Only Kevin seemed sympathetic. The internet is scary. It can change a person's fate just like that. What are you talking about? Didn't that woman change your fate too? She got what she deserved. Yeah, maybe. I hope reading that article makes people realize if you do terrible things to others, it comes back to you, and maybe it will reduce the suffering of others who are still experiencing such hardships. Kevin was always kind. His advancement being delayed by a year and his initial employment opportunity disrupted were indeed events that could have derailed his destiny. But Kevin had persevered, attending a higher-ranked high school and finding a new job on his own, despite my offer to introduce him to related companies. The company I ended up joining is smaller than the one I initially had, but the president is very passionate. It's a great place, he said, his eyes sparkling. Today, we were set to celebrate Kevin's employment again. This time with his girlfriend and Sean's girlfriend at a fancy French restaurant I had booked. Saying, "You're working now, so it's an experience to celebrate at a nice place." As Kevin headed out, I called out to him. No matter the hardships or challenges, overcoming them with your own efforts. Kevin, I'm proud of you. Kevin turned around and smiled shyly.